Okay, I'm live. I'm my bad about that. I'm back. PNF Worldwide Leader Media. Back. Okay. No music. I'm gonna get right to the video. So this video is about the recap of an important topic. So I want to get straight to that. And I might interrupt the video in certain parts. Okay, what is this? Okay. So for people who coming in here, if you hear this what it is. You gotta catch on. Okay. When you see this video, let me know what you think about the Hebrew and how I break it down. Okay, let's go to the beginning right here. Okay, let's get in here.
Because Top Cat made some statement.
Oh yeah, shout out to Garfield Podcast, who was responsible for this video. I'm gonna shout him out.
So Dr. Brown is first, then Alazar. That's opening statements. First, rebuttals. Highly acclaimed 5-volume series answering Jewish objections to Jesus. Ministries. He has taught and led several ministries in the community. As an activist, he is very outspoken.
The real children of Israel debate. It's not a debate from last night. I actually saw the debate from last night. And let me tell y'all something right now. Well, I just call Guerilla Hebrews forward, man, because me and Robon was just about to troll the shit out of it. We was about to troll it, man, because Top Cat made some statements that was funny. I don't know if Top Cat wanted to debate or not, because I missed out on a little bit. But I'm gonna say, man, yo, that shit, yo, Top Cat is a funny ass cat. That's all I gotta say. He don't. I don't know what to say about his information, but he's a funny ass cat. That's all I'm saying. It was all jokes last night. All right, but check this out. This debate was who are the real children of Israel. You got Dr. Brown, a PhD, versus Guerilla Hebrew. This, and they talking about the 12 tribe chart. This was a damn good debate to watch if you are following on both sides of the argument. And I've never watched the complete debate. So now is the time to watch it. All right, check it out.
He's also managed to amass a following the world over. Through his raw yet eloquent and dynamic sermons on the streets to comprehensive classroom lectures, as well as his more casual lifestyle highlighting podcast. He intends to cultivate positive change amongst the BIPOC community. As an activist, he is very outspoken about systemic racism and its manifold effects on Black, Latino, and Native American people, specifically in the Americas. As a thought leader, he is championed for addressing the various internal issues plaguing the BIPOC community and offering innovative solutions based on scripture. He has received honors and awards from the likes of Sa Neter, the House of Consciousness, as well as the Black Female Advisory Board. Guerilla Hebrew is also renowned for his various entrepreneurial endeavors, namely his clothing line / entertainment company, Urban Guerilla, and his musical projects. He describes himself as a priest of God dedicated to Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans who are God's chosen people, the direct descendants of the ancient Israelites. Everybody give it up and welcome Guerilla Hebrew. Now we have Dr. Micheal Brown. Dr. Micheal Brown is a Jewish believer in Jesus and is the founder and president of Ask Dr. Brown Ministries. He has taught and led several ministry schools and served as a visiting or adjunct professor at 7 leading seminaries. He holds a PhD in Near Eastern languages and literatures from New York University and has contributed scholarly articles to a number of major publications, including the Oxford Dictionary of Jewish Religion, Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament, the New International Dictionary of Old Testament Theology and Exegesis, and the Moody Handbook on Messianic Prophecy, as well as biblical and Semitic journals. He is the best-selling author of more than 40 books, including commentaries on Jeremiah and Job, and the highly acclaimed 5-volume series, Answering Jewish Objections to Jesus. Dr. Brown hosts the daily syndicated talk radio show, The Line of Fire, and he is a national and international speaker on themes of spiritual revival and cultural reformation, having also written more than 2,500 op-ed pieces. He has debated Jewish rabbis, agnostic scholars, gay activists, and others on radio, TV, and college campuses, and is widely considered to be the world's foremost Messianic Jewish apologist. Give it up for Dr. Brown being here, everybody. All right. that's that. I don't think we got any questions, but you do need to hear the format. The debaters are familiar with it, but now you, the audience, need to know. Opening statements, 35 minutes total, 17 minutes each. We did a coin toss earlier. I met up with Al-Azhar during Super Bowl weekend, and the way the coin toss worked out with what we had agreed to was Dr. Brown goes first. So Dr. Brown is first, then Al-Azhar. That's opening statements. First rebuttals, 20 minutes total, 10 minutes each. Dr. Brown, followed by Al-Azhar. Second rebuttal, 20 minutes total, 10 minutes each. Dr. Brown, followed by Al-Azhar. Cross-examination, we're going to ask each other questions, and the rules there are no longer than 30 seconds to question, answer, no longer than 2 minutes each. Dr. Brown will first have 10 minutes to ask Al-Azhar questions, and Al-Azhar has 10 minutes to ask Dr. Brown questions. Closing statements, 5 minutes each. Dr. Brown goes first. Al-Azhar has the final word. Then we open it up briefly to the audience Q&A. We're going to read them from the screen. We're not bringing people into the room, and it's going to alternate. Dr. Brown, Al-Azhar, Dr. Brown, Al-Azhar, like that. And the way it'll work is questions no longer than 30 seconds, as we said before. And we're going to, hold on, I have a little thing I need to read about that last thing you sent me. Where did it go? As far as Q&A. And we're going to put the questions, I'll simply say,
few years, it has to be qualified so they can represent their position well. When Al-Azhar stepped forward to do it, of course, very, very happy to do it. Now, I want to talk first to people on, quote, my side. Some of you might say, why are you debating this guy? Man, he's a street thug. Man, he's just dangerous, inflammatory, racist rhetoric. Well, for sure, I take very strong issue with some of the rhetoric that I've heard on the street from Al-Azhar. I don't expect to hear that tonight. But the fact is, there are millions of people in America that seem to have similar sentiments. He's a recognized leader, and I absolutely know he came in prepared. So hear what he has to say and evaluate it based on facts and information. Now, there's some that might be on Al-Azhar's side, and you're not going to listen to me because of the color of my skin. I mean, that's as dumb as being wheeled into an emergency ward and you decide to die rather than let a white doctor help you. So if skin color is going to get in the way of listening, then the devil's already won. So I've been introduced by Al-Azhar very graciously as a PhD and a scholar and all of that. So hear me out, and then may truth triumph. That is the request. So just so you know my overall position, absolutely there are Black Jews and Hispanic Jews. I'm not debating that at all. I am saying that the 12-tribe chart itself is completely bogus, and that, yes, Ashkenazi Jews are among other Jews. Yes, they are legitimate Israelites. All right, so let's put the PowerPoint up, and I'll begin my presentation. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is first debunk a sample of the worst errors on the chart, and then we'll demonstrate that Ashkenazi Jews are authentic descendants of Israel.
Hey, what I'm gonna do, family.
With basing our debate on patrilineal descent, meaning we trace Israelite heritage through the father. I'm fine with that. I may have some related questions later on, but we'll proceed with the patrilineal argument. Now, as for the chart, it's flawed in many obvious ways, including sweeping generalizations, glaring omissions, including the omission of Mizrahi Jews, some of whom had a continuous documented presence in the Middle East for over 2,500 years, among others, and insupportable claims. Of course, the chart you're familiar with, I'm sure Al-Azhar will be getting into it more as we go on. Now, if any part of the chart is false, then the chart cannot be trusted. Keep this in mind throughout the debate. And over the course of Al-Azhar's presentation, listen carefully for factual, historically verifiable, conclusive evidence that connects the different groups of this chart to the specific tribes of Israel listed, not general alleged connections or highly suspect historical anecdotes or convoluted biblical interpretations, but clear, indisputable, historical, scriptural, and genetic connections to each specific tribe. Hang on, there we go. That evidence doesn't exist. And if any point he raises seems to have substance, I'll address it during the time of rebuttal. The Alliance for Black Jews, by the way, claims that there are roughly 200,000 Black American Jews, meaning roughly 0.5% of African Americans. And yes, of course, there are Hispanic Jews, but that is something very different from what the chart claims. So first proof that the chart is bogus, it contradicts Deuteronomy 28:62. There it's written to Israel in exile, you shall be left a scant few after having been as numerous as the stars in the skies because you did not heed the command of your God Yahweh. Yet, according to the 12 tribes chart, there are at least 400 million Israelites today, including 47 million African Americans, 185 million Central Americans, 126 million Mexicans, 11 million Haitians, and 11 million Cubans. This is anything but few in number. Even if you say, well, the chart doesn't mean that every single person in every single group is an Israelite, you have to acknowledge that the vast majority are not Israelites, in which case you've shot yourself in the foot. Just this one fact disqualifies the chart, especially when you compare this number of more than 400 million alleged Israelites with the Jewish population today of about 15 million people. Which group is dramatically fewer in number? Also, Africans were brought to America from several different parts of the continent, which means that those various parts of Africa must have been Israelite as well, potentially adding several hundred million to the number of alleged true Israelites alive today. This is hardly few in number. Second proof, the chart relies on bogus connections. One of the proofs that Issachar is Mexico, this is from a speech, a 3-hour YouTube lecture that Alizar gave in July of 2022, I believe. One of the proofs that Issachar is Mexico today is the alleged Hebrew derivation of Azteca from 2 Hebrew words meaning time and congregation, which would supposedly connect them to the sons of Issachar in 1 Chronicles 12:32, who understood the times and seasons. This is utter nonsense. Hebrew Oz means then. It is not a noun meaning time. And there is no Hebrew word teka. Instead, there is a verb tacha, which likely means to follow. Encyclopedia Britannica also points out that the name Aztec is derived from Aztlan, variously translated as white land, land of white herons, or place of herons, in allusion to their origins probably in northwestern Mexico. Similar errors, which are blatant falsehoods, and not simply matters of interpretation, undermine the chart on every score. Plus, there is no literary or genetic or linguistic connection between Mexico and Issachar. And I don't say this to mock as much as to help those who really want truth from the Most High. In fact, there's not a stitch. Well, hang on, looks like we skipped a slide here. So next proof, Haiti is not Levi. And in fact, there's not a stitch of concrete evidence connecting the Haitians to the Levites any more than there's a factual connection between any of the peoples of this chart and the specific tribes of Israel that are claimed. Deuteronomy 33:10 says about Haiti, not about Haiti, about Levi, they shall teach your laws to Jacob and your instructions to Israel. They shall offer you incense to savor and whole offerings on your altar. Well, Haiti is not teaching the children of Israel the laws of God. Haiti is not observing the 7th-day Sabbath. They don't follow the Torah. They don't circumcise their sons on the 8th day. They don't eat only biblically kosher food, let alone teach all Israel to follow the Torah. Haiti is not Levi. In point of fact, I can add this. There's a slide of mine that got missed along the way, that according to the Bible, the Levites were scattered among all the different tribes of Israel. So there's no possible way they all end up starting in one place in a small island off the coast of America, and then from there go out, completely against history on every level. Fourth proof, Native Americans are not Reuven or Gad. DNA studies, some of them published by former Mormon leaders, make clear that these peoples have an East Asian or Siberian descent, not a Middle Eastern or even African descent. This was a revelation for these former Mormons, since the Book of Mormon, like the 12 tribes chart, claims that Native Americans were actually Israelites. This information caused these leaders to leave Mormonism behind. So in point of fact, and there's a great study, I'll put the copy of the book up, Losing a Lost Tribe. In point of fact, the Mormons agreed with the 12 tribes chart in terms of the Native Americans being original Israelites. It's bogus. That's why they left Mormonism. And to repeat, there's not a stitch of factual evidence, including solid linguistic evidence, to connect any Native American people with Reuven or God. This is pure fiction. And note that large-scale genetic studies indicate that these Native Americans were here on our continent even before Israel was formed as a nation. Here's one example. Science Magazine, November 2018, points to that. Fifth proof, the chart contradicts Deuteronomy 28:68. And this is just a sampling of what could be dozens and dozens of truths. Deuteronomy 28:68, you're familiar with it. Yahweh will send you back to Egypt in galleys by a route which I told you should not see again. There you shall offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but none will buy. This verse does not apply to anyone on this chart, especially not Mexicans or Seminole Indians or Central Americans, among others. Not at all. They were never slaves in Egypt, let alone sent by ship back to Egypt as slaves. As for the idea that Egypt sometimes does not refer to a physical place in the Old Testament, but rather to any place of slavery and bondage, that too is completely bogus, which I can easily demonstrate if this point is challenged. In fact, if you just read 2 more verses into Deuteronomy 29, verse 2, Moses tells you that this refers to literal Egypt. Now, before I go further here, I do want to point out that the ancient Jews were sold back into Egypt in ships, according to Josephus and other early Jewish historians, as far as what happened in the 1st century after the destruction of the temple. 6th proof, the chart ignores the real Jews who preserve the Hebrew Bible and Hebrew language. It is the people that the world recognizes as Jews today who suffered the terrible curses of Deuteronomy 28. Not all the peoples listed on the chart who, to repeat, with rare exception, have no connection whatsoever to ancient Israel. This, of course, does not minimize for a second the horrible sufferings of African Americans or Native Americans in the past, nor does it deny that some African Americans descended from Israel. It is simply to point out who really fulfills the sad history of Deuteronomy 28. Now, contrast this complete lack of genetic, biological, historical, traditional, or ritual connection to ancient Israel from the vast majority of those listed on the chart with the fact that those recognized by the world today as Jews, among whom are millions of Ashkenazi Jews, have continued to maintain Jewish identity through the millennia despite horrific persecution. They have been persecuted as Jews for more than 2,000 years and kicked out of countries because they are Jews. This is highly significant when you remember how difficult and unpopular it has been to be a Jew over the last 2,000 years. I can assure you that there were no blacks and Latino Hebrew Israelites standing on street corners in Nazi-controlled Europe shouting, "We are the real Jews." These real Jews have observed the Sabbath, kept the dietary laws, and practiced circumcision on the 8th day. They have genealogical connections to ancient Israel, historical connections, traditional connections, DNA connections, confirming the priestly genealogical connections in particular. And these Jews, who are real Jews, as opposed to some of the fake Jews on the chart, have preserved the Hebrew scriptures and Hebrew language, as opposed to the completely mythical so-called Lashon Kodesh, which I'll call LQ from here. And while I understand we're not debating here the legitimacy of this modern, totally made-up pronunciation, this does tie in with the question of authenticity. Since if the pronunciation of LQ is true, which it is not, then every speaker of every Semitic language throughout history and until today is wrong, since similar grammatical and morphological and phonetic principles apply across these languages. If the pronunciation of LQ is accurate, which it is not, then every recognized Hebrew and Semitic grammar and lexicon is wrong, along with every Semitic place name on every map, including place names like Jerusalem and Judah, and every transcription of Hebrew in the Greek Septuagint and the Greek New Testament, including the names of the 12 tribes in Revelation 7, they're all wrong if LQ is right. In short, LQ contradicts every Semitic language spoken or written in history because it is a recent Hebrew Israelite invention, and we can trace vocalization back to ancient times. This calls into question the Hebrew Israelite claim to authenticity, since the same Hebrew Israelites who purport to have the true pronunciation of Hebrew also purport to have the true information about the 12 tribes. Those are actually claims that real Hebrew is, quote, a bastardized version of LQ. So we're not debating LQ tonight. It's a bogus pronunciation. We're debating authenticity. And if you have the language wrong, you can bet you got the other things wrong as well. So without a doubt, the 12 tribes chart is bogus. But are my ancestors really related to ancient Israel? If so, why are we white-skinned when certainly ancient Israelites were not white? Some claim that we're descendants of the Khazars who allegedly converted en masse to Judaism in the 9th century, but that theory has been thoroughly debunked along several lines, including genetic, historical, and linguistic. And if the Khazar argument is raised, I'll be glad to rebut it. As for the Hebrew name Ashkenaz in the Bible, it refers to an entirely different people having nothing to do with Europe, referring most likely to the Scythians and now extinct people in Central Asia. So first proof of our authenticity, DNA confirms the authenticity of Ashkenazi Jews. As for the most comprehensive recent DNA study of Ashkenazi Jews, spearheaded by geneticists from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Harvard Medical School, and published November 30th, 2022, it confirms that we can trace our lineage back to first century Jewish communities in Italy, which would include those sold as slaves into Rome, as well as earlier Jewish communities there, which Acts mentions. And here's a reference to the study. Subsequently, as Italians converted, married into Judaism, our European skin color became part of our heritage. Then, as these Jews made their way into other parts of Europe and settled there, the same process continued, explaining our Caucasian complexion. But the same process occurred with African Jews or Hispanic Jews or Asian Jews, all of whom reflect other peoples marrying into the people of Israel, hence the many different colors and ethnicities of Jews worldwide, in contrast with the original brown-skinned Israelites. For the record, even if you argue that the original Israelites were black, then there had to be conversion and intermarriage to explain the other ethnic and racial groups on the chart. But not only does DNA in general give us a clear link back to ancient Israel, the fact is, as I mentioned before, Ashkenazi Jews who are of priestly descent share the same priestly gene as do Lemba Jews in Africa and Sephardi Jews worldwide. How could this be unless our Kohanim, our priests, actually descended from a common priestly ancestor? If Ashkenazi Jews have no genetic connection to Israel, then where did we acquire this gene?
Less than 2 minutes.
Note also that geneticists have pointed out that the Y chromosome, meaning the paternal, the fatherly chromosome of most Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews, contains mutations that are common among Middle Eastern peoples, but uncommon in the general European population. This suggests that the paternal lineages of Ashkenazi Jews could be traced mostly to the Middle East. These geneticists add that diaspora Jews from Europe, Northwest Africa, and the Near East resemble each other more closely than they resemble their non-Jewish neighbors. Put another way, Ashkenazi Jews originated in the Middle East. Second proof, Ashkenazi Jews have lived by the Torah and Jewish traditions. So just ask, who has kept the traditions through the centuries? Who has passed on the Hebrew language? Who has passed on the Hebrew scriptures? And who is it that continues the traditions of the Pharisees in the New Testament who rejected Jesus? Sadly, those are my ancestors, the Ashkenazi Jews, going straight back to biblical times. And then lastly, God has brought us back to the land of Israel in accordance with his promises. Yeshua made clear in Matthew 23 that a Jewish Jerusalem must welcome him back. So the question is, who is it that God brought back to Israel and controls Jerusalem today? It's Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews and Mizrahi Jews and Ethiopian Jews, among others. And as for the sufferings these Jewish people have endured, including Ashkenazi Jews, our pain is as great as the pain of any people through history. So I could expand on all these points at great length, along with expose more of the fallacies of the chart. Listen carefully to...
So go ahead.
All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, whose name in Hebrew is Yahweh. Right, I do so in the name of his only begotten Son, who the world knows as Jesus Christ, whose name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai. Chief priest Alazar in Guerilla Hebrew. Just a high school dropout, convicted felon, street thug, and I just kind of want to walk y'all through some stuff tonight. So, who are the legit children of Israel? Right, that's tonight's question. First and foremost, I want to take you guys here to Revelations 2:9, right? And it reads, I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them, which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Somebody is perpetrating a fraud. Somebody is going around saying they are Jews and are not. And I'd like to take this into consideration, Romans 3:4. God forbid, yea, let God be true, but every man a liar. Tonight we are going to let the word of God be the final authority on who in fact is the true Jew and who is the synagogue of Satan. Right? Isaiah 8:20. Look to God's instructions and teachings. People who contradict his word are completely in the dark. So after we take a look at all of this evidence for who is the legit children of Israel, the 12 tribes chart of the Ashkenazi Jews, right? Whoever's identity contradicts the word of God, that's the people who are in the dark, right? So again, I want to reiterate tonight's topic, right? And that is, who are the legit children of Israel? Legit, of course, is short for legitimate. Legitimate means conforming to the law or to rules. It's important, right? So, and who are the children of Israel? Let's define that. Israel is a man who was originally named Jacob. This is a debate about who is legitimately his child, children, or offspring. This is not about who was allowed to convert to Judaism. I want to make that clear. It's about who the legitimate offspring. How do we establish if somebody's a legitimate offspring of Jacob or Israel? It's very simple. Numbers 1 and 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day, on the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, as Dr. Michael Brown himself has already affirmed. Ezra 2 and 9 affirms it also. It says, but they cannot shew their father's house and their seed, whether they were of Israel. One more, of course, here we have Leviticus 24 and 10, where we have an Israelitish woman. She has a son by an Egyptian, and he is juxtaposed from the children of Israel in two different instances here in this verse in Leviticus 24 and 10. Right? So I want to take you guys to a man by the name of Dr. Henry Abramson, right? And he's notable for his teachings on Jewish history and Judaism as a religion. He was assistant and later associate professor of history and Jewish studies at Florida Atlantic University from 96 to 06. And during that time, he held appointments at a number of prestigious universities such as Oxford, Cornell, Harvard, and Hebrew University. He received his PhD in history from the University of Toronto. Dr. Michael Brown has even recently referenced his work on his Line of Fire show to assist a caller in understanding Jews in the diaspora. Right, so he's a very qualified man and somebody who Dr. Michael Brown recognizes as credible. Right? When describing the founding and genetic bottleneck event for the Ashkenazi Jews, he names the Kalanimus family as the nucleus thereof. Sometime around the year 800 CE, a small group of Jews, he says, left northern Italy. The Kalanimus family, for example, they made their way to the Rhineland in contemporary Germany. Those people formed the nucleus of Ashkenazi Jewry. So according to Dr. Henry Abramson, this Kalanimus family is a former of the nucleus of Ashkenazi Jewry. And this, coincidentally enough, is a symbol of the Kalanimus family, which is an E. Right? Now let's go to the Jewish Virtual Library and see what they had to say about the Kalanimus family. The Kalanimus, one of the most eminent Jewish families in Germany, which flourished from the 9th to 13th century, especially in the cities near the Rhine. Among its members were numerous rabbis, preachers, poets, teachers, authors, moralists, and theologians. And most of the prominent communal leaders of this period came from its ranks. The origin of that family go back to the 8th century Italy. Notice it's Italy they go back to, not Israel, Italy. Although the name Kalanimus appeared in Talmudic literature, the father of Onkelos, the great translator of the Bible, was, according to Al-Dazarah 11a, called Kalanimus. So we're tracking this history of this Kalanimus family, right? So they reference the oldest Kalanimus member who's referenced in Talmudic literature. So let's go to this Talmudic literature and read what it says about the origins of this Kalanimus family. The Gemara mentions other Romans who converted to Judaism. It relates Onkelos bar Kalanimus converted to Judaism. So according to Dr. Henry Abramson, the Jewish Virtual Library, and the Talmud, the Ashkenazi Jews were founded by a family of Italian Roman converts. They cannot be the legit children of Israel. They can't, right? So this is who I am saying is the legit children of Israel. It's very clear through some of the things said in Dr. Brown's opening round that he doesn't actually understand the claims being made here. At no point are we claiming that this is the absolute for all of the Israelites in the world. At no point, right? But this is the people who we believe are affected here in the Americas and are Israelites in the Americas. This doesn't count for any other parts of the world, but we do emphatically take the stance that the Ashkenazi Jews are not Israelites, right? So again, Judah, the African Americans, Benjamin, the Commonwealth, the Dutch Caribbean, Levi, the Haitians, Simeon, Dominicans, Zebulon, the Central Americans, Ephraim, Puerto Ricans, Manasseh, Cubans, Gad, Native Americans, Reuben, Seminole Indians, Naphtali, Indigenous Argentinian and Chileans, Asher, Native Colombian and Uruguayans, Issachar, Mexicans. Right? Dr. Brown affirms, as he's already said, that the Israelites of antiquity were not white. There was not a single white Jew until roughly the 8th century AD. And the Igbo of Nigeria have a valid claim to Israelite descent, which basically is a virtual forfeiture of this debate. I'll explain later, right? He also just today said there's no doubt that there are both Black and Hispanic Jews, also a virtual forfeiture, right? He also says the Israelites were not white, but they were also not Black, but brown. But if you take a look at our chart here, which I in this version of the chart that I cultivated, Spirit got on me to cultivate, all praise to the Most High for it, and that he already referenced, if you pay attention, the median color of this chart is brown. So this actually also validates our stance, right? Moving on. Let's go back to the Igbo though, because he said the Igbo have a valid claim to being Israelites. The Igbo became one of the principal ethnic groups to be enslaved during the Atlantic slave trade. So one of the greatest ethnic groups that is a contributor to the Atlantic slave trade are the Igbo, and they make up for a large deal, especially the majority of African Americans are of Igbo descent, right? Now, according to the foundational narratives taken from Igbo oral tradition, they say that some Jews left Judah in the periods of the destruction of the first and second temples and migrated to Nigeria. So this means that according to their oral traditions, they are of the southern kingdom, exactly who we say they are. So the Igbo maintained that they were of the southern kingdom, and they were a great contributor to the slaves that were brought over here to the United States of America and the Caribbean, which would explain why we say Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? According to tradition and genetics, are the tribes that are the so-called Black tribes, the ones that were brought over here from West Africa, right? So there's traditions and genetics, things that he says we didn't have that substantiate that. But wait, there's more, right? It's Ezekiel 4 and 5 to 6. So I want to go into some biblical prophecy here, and again, let the word of God speak to really identify us and disqualify the Ashkenazim from, of course, being the legitimate children of Israel, right? I have assigned you the same number of days as the years of their sin. So for 390 days, you will bear the sin of the people of Israel. After you have finished this, lie down again, this time on your right side, and bear the sin of the people of Judah. I have assigned you 40 days, a day for each year. So the Most High God has the prophet Ezekiel lay on each of his sides to represent a judgment for the sins of Israel that will happen, right? One for 390 days, the other for 40 days. We take 390, we add 40, we have 430. So this represents 430 consecutive years of a specific judgment for the transgressions of the nation of Israel, right? Now, coincidentally enough, in the 1440s, we see the start of the European slave trade in Africa. And in the 1870s, we see the importation of slaves from Africa coming to an end in the Americas, the Atlantic slave trade, right? So if we take 1870, we minus it by 1440, we get 430 years of that judgment that God pronounced on the nation of Israel. And this, of course, affected all the people on the chart, right? Because not only did you have West Africans kidnapped and taken from West Africa and brought over here, you had Taino Indians that were shipped to Spain. You had Native Americans of the Pequot tribe of New England taken and shipped down to Cuba. You had Mayans shipped down to Cuba, et cetera, et cetera. So this affected all people, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian collectively for 430 years. I would love for Dr. Brown tonight to demonstrate us a 430-year type of judgment that his people, the Ashkenazim, experienced. Moving on. Isaiah 42 and 22, it reads, but his people, right, God's people, have been robbed and plundered, enslaved, imprisoned, and trapped. They are fair game for anyone and have no one to protect them, no one to take them back home. So let's analyze this here, right? Black and Hispanic people have undoubtedly been robbed and spoiled, have been enslaved, and then take a look at this term in prison, right? The United States of America presently has more us and disqualify the Ashkenazim from, of course, being the legit. So there's traditions and genetics, things that he says we didn't have that substantiate that. But wait, there's more, right? This is Ezekiel 4 and 5 to 6. So I want to go into some biblical prophecy here, and again, let the word of God speak to really identify us and disqualify the Ashkenazim from, of course, being the legitimate children of Israel, right? I have assigned you the same number of days as the years of their sin. So for 390 days, you will bear the sin of the people of Israel. After you have finished this, lie down again, this time on your right side, and bear the sin of the people of Judah. I have assigned you 40 days, a day for each year. So the Most High God has the prophet Ezekiel lay on each of his sides to represent a judgment for the sins of Israel that will happen, right? One for 390 days, the other for 40 days. We take 390, we add 40, we have 430. So this represents 430 consecutive years of a specific judgment for the transgressions of the nation of Israel, right? Now, coincidentally enough, in the 1440s, we see the start of the European slave trade in Africa. And in the 1870s, we see the importation of slaves from Africa coming to an end in the Americas, the Atlantic slave trade, right? So if we take 1870, we minus it by 1440, we get 430 years of that judgment that God pronounced on the nation of Israel. And this, of course, affected all the people on the chart, right? Because not only did you have West Africans kidnapped and taken from West Africa and brought over here, you had Taino Indians that were shipped to Spain. You had Native Americans of the Pequot tribe of New England taken and shipped down to Cuba. You had Mayans shipped down to Cuba, et cetera, et cetera. So this affected all people, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, collectively for 430 years. I would love for Now, there's been talk about DNA. Oh, there's been talk about DNA. And it's funny that there's been so much talk about DNA. I knew he was going to do this, right? So now, I don't subscribe to the idea that there's DNA that can actually trace anybody back anywhere in antiquity. I don't subscribe to that whatsoever, but he does. There's a problem with that. So the problem with DNA, according to sequencing.com, which is a leading DNA research company, Jewishness is more difficult to identify in genetic testing than other ethnic groups. This is because there is no specific gene that makes a person Jewish. Also, straightforward DNA examination cannot conclusively tell a person whether or not they are Jewish descent or a part of a Jewish population. So what's interesting is one of his objections to the 12 tribe chart was, well, you cannot demonstrate a genetic connection between these people, but it is impossible for anybody to actually demonstrate a genetic connection between any modern people and the ancient Israelites. That cannot be done. So he's asking me to do something that is not only impossible, but something that his people cannot do either, right? Moving on. Another problem with DNA. According to Raphael Falk, an Ashkenazi Jew and geneticist who is professor of genetics at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Is he qualified enough for you? There is no Jewish genotype to identify. Also, same guy, Raphael Falk, again, an Ashkenazi Jew who is a geneticist and professor at the Hebrew University. Also, there is no agreed upon criterion to identify Jews, and samples examined for the distribution of biological or molecular markers all depend on the preconceived biases of the investigators. I want everybody to make sure they understand that loud and clear. This is an Ashkenazi Jew who is a geneticist and a professor, and he says these conclusions that are being came to by these Jews that allegedly affirm their identity with DNA are all depend on preconceived biases. I mean, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm just a high school dropout. What do I know? But here is this person who is an Ashkenazi Jew and geneticist, and he says that these markers that they're trying to purport, demonstrate that they are Jews, all depend on preconceived biases.
A minute 30 left.
That's crazy, right? But here I am. I'm supposed to believe what Dr. Michael Brown is doing. You see him shuffling now, don't you? Y'all see him live shuffling. He's shuffling for that. You know what? I need him to deal with it.
You know what I don't understand? The whole attitude, like, you see, when you're a part of a cult, you think you're better than everybody else. You think you are so smart. And I'm not talking about Dr. Brown or Guerilla Hebrew. I'm talking about the comments in the chat. Now, I had to block her for a while, because she started talking to somebody, and she meant
This peer-reviewed scholastic research. Let's keep going. Now, he also brought up linguistics. The problem with DNA and linguistics. In 2017, Paul Wechsler, an Ashkenazi Jew and a linguist, and is a professor of linguistics at Tel Aviv University in Israel, along with a few other scholars, published an article in Frontiers of Genetics called The Origin of Ashkenaz,
Ashkenazi Jews, and Yiddish, they came to some interesting conclusions with their findings, right? So again, here is an Ashkenazi Jew who is a linguist and a professor at another prestigious university in the country of Israel, right? And he did a genetic and linguistic test. Remember, because Dr. Michael Brown also utilizes linguistics as evidence to validate the legitimacy of Ashkenazi Jews as children of Israel. So let's see what they found in 2017. And I guarantee that this scholarship and these studies are more up to date than the ones he's utilizing to affirm the Ashkenazi Jews' legitimacy as Israelites.
That is time. That has been 17 minutes.
Top cap.
All right, I'm stopping right there for a little while. I'm in the chat. It ain't that many people commenting, but hey, let me do my breakdown. Hold on, let me go up in here to StreamYard. Let me do my breakdown before I continue. Before I continue the video. So far, Dr. Michael Brown made his points, and I want to make some points on him. And Guerilla Hebrew did good. He did good actually. And Dr. Michael Brown, who carried on the Hebrew language throughout the years, how did his people become white? Circumcisions on the 8th day in Haiti. American Israelites were not slaves in Egypt. And Moses, during the time of Moses. And there were no blacks, Hispanics in Nazi Germany claiming they were Jews. So I'm about to debunk all that instead of waiting. And then I'm going to go on to the rebuttal round. They got the rebuttal rounds, which was quite interesting. But I don't want to do all this because I'm going to do a whole breakdown of Moab in the end. Now, I'm not a master teacher on this because you can't be the master teacher if you didn't present it. But I'm a master researcher. And I can interpret this for what it is. So let's go straight in here to the facts first. Let's go and debunk everything Mr. Michael Brown said. And he wasn't totally wrong. He's not totally wrong. He's just not being totally honest. That's the thing about Mr. Michael Brown. So who carried on Hebrew? So let's go to that first, Mr. Michael Brown. Okay. Matter of fact, let's go and get a whole nother you dig. Let's go and get this. Let me break this down. Let me show you how I can do this. And then get right back to the video. Because they're gonna do their breakdown and then he's gonna finish it. Garfield. But let me get Michael Brown right now because he's probably not gonna listen to this video. He probably at least listen to the beginning. So who carried the Hebrew? And we got our own stories, just like they broke down is Israelite Hebrew culture all over the world, etc. Or the old temple Jerusalem, descendants of the Roman Jerusalem occupations on the world. Jerusalem, which we call the kingdoms of God, the kingdoms of peace. So let's say the language. Let's say Moabite stone. Unfortunately, Dr. Michael Brown, the Misha Stele is where Hebrew is born. This is where Hebrew is born. Because we have remnants of stories of people that claim this, who is claiming a 2,000-year bloodline. See, this is where you got to be critical with your thinking. The Moabite stone is credited with authorizing paleo, which means pale to me. That's why I don't like using that word pale. And that might be considered pseudo to some because I don't have definite proof, but their language is English. But the Misha Stele is credited with deciphering Hebrew for these people because they was claiming a culture and they didn't have a language. And this Stele is supposed to mention Yahweh or their God. So this is what gave them the insight that these were the people they went to war against. So this is the language that they spoke. So in so many words, they adopted this language because, like I said, they had no evidence of their language prior to it. Now, I'm not going to overtalk this because slick talkers are trying to get technical on me, but we know Hebrew is a archaeological term. We know it's a archaeological term for Abrahamism and descendants. And we don't have a definitive definition for Hebrew. It also stems from Cobra or Kebra Nagas. So their version is a more of a paleo albino leprosy. We're dealing with albino lepers, and I'm going to prove that in the Bible. I'm going to prove it through science. We have lepers in denial. And then we have another group of people, they curse black, called the Canaanites, and the curse of Cain, where they curse them black. And these are cursed white. So these two people are fighting, and that's why I mentioned Canaanite being hijacked with the Aramaic, that's the Moabite script, that's the city language of Moab. Aramaic and Moab is the same language, and it's the cursive version. So when they say, Hebrew is Aramaic, I laugh because that's the new term that they're adopting to validate their existence. Now they're 2,000 years old, Michael Brown, and they can connect themselves to 2,000 years. You're Ashkenazi people. Why do you have to use the Moabite stone, who is the Moorish Americans, the direct relatives of Moorish Americans? Circumcision on the 8th day. Let's go and get circumcision. Let's go and get circumcision, whether it was on the 8th day or not with the Haitians. I'm not going to argue that, but I am going to argue the so-called Egyptians practiced it. And we also know the Americans practiced it, right? The Americans practiced it as well, and they were known as the Aztecs, the Aboriginal people of Australia, the South Sea Islander people, and today it's still practiced by the Jews and Muslims. We believe that they got it from the Aboriginal races, the Mayans, Egyptians, where the Moors stem from. This is where the Moors stem from. We call them the Moors today, and their religion is being co-opted by the Hebrews. They were recently known as the Canaanites and Moabites, and in order to justify their existence, they got to act like the Moabites and Canaanites don't exist. So here is the Incas, Aztec, Mayans, and ancient Egyptians once practiced circumcision, way before some type of Jews and Muslims who are a later Johnny-come-lately people, no matter how they choose to identify themselves as some chosen people. And we can go over that next. Ancient Israelites were not slaves in Egypt. Now, Moses' time of rebellions. Let's go into the Moses rebellions to show you what type of Israelites these is, which could very well be Canaanites as well. Let's say Osiris. Osiris is a religious leader who's supposed to be Moses. He is equated with Moses, and he led leper rebellions in so-called Egypt against a pharaoh named Amenophis, who was the son of Ramses. And the pharaoh is driven out of the country, and the leper army, which was a curse in alliance with the Hyksos. So we have records of some cursed leprous people, because in those days, albinism or white spots was leprosy. This is the big purity argument of the biblical fanatics of that day of who was pure and clean. If you were not pure and clean, you're committing sacrilege against the gods. They expelled them for having these white spots, and they're going to reverse this into black skin. But in these times, it's white spots, and this is what Jesus and Moses and these people are going against. The racism of the brown people and the preachers back then who exiled those who was not perfect. So he was a renegade Egyptian priest with an army of lepers or unclean people. So I'm breaking this down to show you these are the slaves that was captured in Egypt and made to work later and became rebellious surrounding Egypt. And this is how they justify being Jews today, because they were either slave captives or lepers. Okay, there was no Hispanic or so-called Moors or blacks in Nazi Germany. So let's go in here and debunk that right quick, Mr. Michael Brown. Let's say Moorburg. Okay, Moorburg. I think it's Moorburg, Germany, if I'm not mistaken. Moorburg, Germany. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, the original name of Germany was Marburg or something like that. And it was also Cameroon. So let's say the original name of Germany. We're gonna show you when Germany got its name. Original name. Hold on, let's get this right. Original name of Germany was Mora. I'm just gonna type Mora and see what it say. Mora mean blackberry. Okay, Moraburg. Not popping up, but I know. Okay, let's say Cameroon. Cameroon, Germany. Let's keep typing till we find it. Okay, this was an African colony, and it's gonna take me back to Moraburg. I'm gonna find it in here because it's not letting me type it. And this is how you know the algorithm don't want you looking this stuff up. It sounds like Spookus and Bismarck, okay, but it's in here. So this is Cameroon, right? A part of this, what they call Germany Empire, but it wasn't called Germany back then. It was called Moraburg, and I'm finna look it up. And this is part of a Moorish people. And then I'm gonna show you the pictures of these people that we got proof that they're taking their identity. But first, let me find that Moraburg. It might be down here somewhere. Let me see. German. They're not Cameroon. Let me see. Okay, they're hiding that word. Okay. When did Germany get its name? Hold on. Germanique. All right, let me see. I can find it. I'm gonna find it. Capital of Germany was Marburg. This is not it. It's called Moerberg. It's called something else. Okay, the Holy Roman. This is not it. But this is what it was called. It's one of them. This might be it. But it's not really it. What I'm looking for. Okay. I can find it. I got it in my records. And I want to prove it because I know Dr. Michael Brown know what I'm talking about, and I need to have that proof. But this is a part of it. It's called Moraburg, if I'm not mistaken, and it was the capital of Nazi Germany. And this is why we had so many Nazis in Africa. I'm finna pull it up in a minute. And what he's trying to say is there was no African Americans or Nazis, but we have Franco-Spanish. Let's go and look up Franco. I'm gonna come back to this Moraburg. I'm gonna find it as a source. Let's say Franco-Spanish Moroccan. Spanish Protectorate of Morocco. And we know Morocco and the Nazis and Spanish was all together. They was all together. So yes, we do have Hispanic people in Germany before the white people took over in World War I, the so-called albino people. We also have dark-skinned people. Let's go and show you, doctor. Nazi and Islam. We pull that right up, and the pictures show you that the Nazi was very interested in Judaism and Judentum and Islam. Judentum and Islam. They was very, very interested in this Turk more culture, religion. So let's go and get the real Jews, who we know who is the real Jews because we know that the real Jews don't sunburn. Mehmet Effendi. And that's why you got to be careful being racist. Just go right to the sunburn. Just go right to the sunburn. Don't even say colors. Don't even say colors. They're not. Okay, here it is right here. So here he is right here with two Slavic people in the back. And that's what this Jewish man, he don't want to be recognized as a Slavic man. That's why they cling on to that Ashkenazi. Look at these two. They don't really look Slavic, that Slavic. But you can see this brother look like Ice Cube, and that's would be a real Moor or a Jew, depending on matriarch or patriarch, whatever he choose. And this is what they were this is what he was defending. That's being hijacked in the old world. This is what they defended in the old world. As you can see, our empire had these buildings just like America. This is what we had: airplanes. You can see, we can see the real inventors of it. You can tell we didn't need no European to make no airplane. They're taking all the history, even the buildings. This is what we're arguing. The Slavic people, inhabitants and the Mameluke, are now claiming to be some relation to these people, who are the old empire, who ruled the old empire for 700 to 800 years. So they're claiming to be a Jewish people during the reign of these people, which was 700 to 800 years, possibly even longer, because we got to add Budapest and Buddhas, the Buddha period, the Turk periods, the Hittite period. So look at these buildings that we know is Moorish, we know is Turk. You see the cuts. We see the Central American bricklaying cut. We see the American architecture, and we see the Moorish American brother with the airplane. And Dr. Michael Brown will try to act like this is a slave, so we know the hijack is real. Now let's go back to the Marburg. I'm gonna find that before I continue on with the video. Let's go and find the Marburg. I know it's in here. So we know the Moabite is not Hebrew. Hebrew is a archaeological language to take from the Canaanite, found in the Canaanite languages from southern Canaan. So the descendants that Dr. Brown is claiming relationship to now has taken the Canaan script and just turned it old Hebrew, like they do English with Welsh. They take English and create new languages and act like that's the original. That's all they're doing with Hebrew. They're taking the Phoenician alphabet, which is what you had to use back then, to verify their Paleo Hebrew script among the Moabite speakers. The reason why they use Moabite is because Aramaic will lead to Moab, and I'm going to show you exactly why. I'm going to show you exactly why Moab will lead to Aramaic, so they had to be speaking Moab. Yes, they could have been using the Phoenician alphabet, but they had to be speaking Moab. I'm going to show you exactly why. Because we recognize Aramaic with cursive during the Ptolemaic period. This is how they know it was the Ptolemaic period, the Ptolemaic period. Because of the language, Aramaic is Moabite. It's a Moabite word. So I'm gonna prove that and later on in the video. But let's go and get what I'm going to get. I have to get this Moorberg. I won't feel comfortable. And I want to look at that at that thumbnail too, with that Star of David and those dark-skinned warriors right here, as we can see on the thumbnail. But I'm gonna have to go in here. I know it's in here. Look at Simone Boulevard, y'all. Look at that. 41 thumbs up. Look at Simone Boulevard and Brother Campeo. These are the people that was in Germany. These are the Germans. They got Germans. Actually, history is supposed to come from South America, not Patmos, but Patagonia. These are the leaders and the rulers of Germany. Brazil, the leader of Brazil was ruling Portugal. From Brazil, they was ruling over there. And I'm going to show you. And this is where the so-called Hitler fled to South America and married an Aborigine. That's the tale, right? So let's go down. This is why we're finding Egypt in America. So according to Dr. Michael Brown, Egypt over there is more valid than Egypt in America. So him saying Afro Americans, Black Americans, yada yada yada, misnomers not being in Egypt is his. It is his testimony, because we don't even call ourselves those names. We don't call ourselves those names. Those are the names he gave slaves. Now look at this proof of us together. Our light skinned and dark skinned brothers, they now call Hispanic and Black. Army of the Mississippi flag, the Sisters flag of Islam. Look at the Moorish Scissors flag. Now let's go down. Shout out to UTLS. Okay, let me go and find this Moraberg. As we can see them copying the ancestors in Mexico, we can see the Chickamauga. We can see the culture is being hijacked in America, so it's easily for these people to be getting hijacked, because we know these are the forefathers right here that look like the Igbo. You see, he got the Igbo nose, the West African nose, the strong nose. See the strong nose, right? You see the global charioteers with the big wheels. Why would they have these wheels on the walls? Look at the rubber. That is not wood. That's rubber. Man, these dudes was getting busy. Now here, right here, look at John, King of Portugal, a mulatto brother. Brazil transferring his throne to Rio de Janeiro. He ruled Portugal from Brazil. Technically a brother, because they'll tell you one drop roll. So he is a brother. John, ruler of Portugal from Brazil, showing you that we would have been in those lands. Michael Brown. Okay, now let's go. Okay, here's this site, Ilha de Itamaraca, which is a site of so-called escaped Romans during the wars of Jerusalem in early Roman history in 200 BC, something like that. Fled here. This is a story. We can look at that. Let's go. Okay. Let's go. I know it ain't that far, so I gotta find this while I crank this video. Here is the Maltese cross, so-called sun cross, with the Aztecs, showing you the hijack coach. Here go a captive in Tonina, Mexico, with braids, heavily braided hair with round nose. Okay. Here's more figures. Moriscos being hung by Native Americans, brown people, supporting the Hebrew guerrilla claims of Americas. Look at the centromere of Huli Olin, the centromere symbol, showing you that they knew about cellular activities. That is a centromere. There goes those scissors I just showed y'all on the pyramid. Okay. I hope and pray that Moraberg pop up, because I don't know how to really spell it, but okay. I know I had done something on it. Too bad. I know I did something on it. Missouri, the Egyptian king of Moab. So here we go with Moab connecting with Missouri people of Egypt, who is Missouri and Mississippi in Americas today. Because we have Moab in America. It's not just in Africa. It's not just in Africa. Mount Moab was never in Africa, as a matter of fact. Okay. I sure forgot how to say it. I forgot how to write it, but I know. Here is the Noka people, the Inaka people in Illinois, light skin and dark skin, showing you we've been together. I don't know how to write it, but I really want to prove this Moraberg. Here go these buildings in America, like the Ottoman Empire, that they're running around here hijacking. They're hijacking this stuff, claiming to be some type of Jews. Here is the god of the sun, called Sol Indiges. so indigenous, so invictus. Here is the God of the sun debunking the Jew claim of albinism and pheomelanin because they cannot be in the sun for too long. So they cannot be children of the sun. It's proof. We can show you through pheomelanin and genetics. They have something they call pheomelanin and they do not like to talk about it. They don't like to talk about it. And leprosy, and that's why they try to get a New Testament before you can hurry up and find out that leprosy was a curse. Albinism was a curse. Sunburn, melanoma, anything affliction that afflicted you was a curse. And they handed you stiff punishment and exiling back then. And that's these people today we call Slavic people, is what Dr. Dan Brown is related to. He's saying that they're European people, but the original European people are brown skinned, not Slavic people. So once again, Michael Brown contradicts himself and does a poor example and gives a poor attempt to hijack European history, which is not albino history. Albino people come later, and they are known today as Anglo people, Anglo-Slavic people, and various other groups that they have amalgamated. Here's Marquis de Lafayette, the founder of Lafayette, Tennessee, and other places in America, and also a Revolutionary War hero. He is a Revolutionary War hero and is known for his dark skin features, yet they still paint him as an albino. This is a known fact. This cannot be debated, and this is why Haitian people are marginalized. And this is to support the claim of Guerilla Hebrew, who is saying a lot of Haitians do got that bloodline, because here is a nobleman who could never be a slave, who would be directly related to that bloodline of nobles, because he go back to the French period, which was predominantly dark-skinned people. No albinos of any such of this matter of Britain was even in America during this time. They're Johnny come lately people. So this is the artistic license. This is Marquis de Lafayette, a founder and explorer of land occupation in America, history being stolen. Let's keep going until we get that Moab. As we see, Cleopatra, I did a video on that. She already was hijacked and is a dark chocolate person, according to the Occitan manuscripts during the Ptolemaic period, showing you that these would have been Moabites. Moabites are dark-skinned people. This is Queen Cleopatra, who is a dark-skinned woman. Regardless if they married into Europeans or whatever they claim, this is still how she was depicted in what we know as the 14th century Occitan manuscript, which means west. Occitan means west. Occidental. Occitan means west, and Oriental means east. The Abrujaman de las Storias. Go look it up, and they show the real Cleopatra. Let's keep going down. Here goes some more brown Native Americans in the mound cities in the Midwest that I found this Alba Ayabola. And I think this was some type of Creek people, but this Alba Ayamola. But let's keep going because, like I say, I just want to expose the Moraberg to debunk. Because, like I say, when I challenge somebody, I got to be correct. Here is Aristotle teaching appears to be a Semitic person or light-skinned, bright person with dark hair. But as we can see, Aristotle is a dark man who would be considered a Moorish man. And he is the father of a lot of sciences, as we can see the Moorish script right here. Let's keep going. Yes, according to your convent, yes, the Slavs have hijacked, but they have married. Where they married, that's where they took over, whatever they married. Here's an old map of New Prussia in America showing you the extent of the German Republic or the Russian, what we are dealing with a lot of those families over there, like the Romani, the Romanis, and other families. In Moraberg, but I just, like I said, I want to get the right name of this place. It's coming up right now. Marytown, another number state. I'm gonna be using this for the debate with the Igbo, showing you they were Moors who were not even from West Africa, and they're trying to say they're Jews, but they're really Moors because they come from the mother as well. They come from the mother. They're an ancient race. Morocco. Okay, here is the throne of our empire in Japan or the Pacific Islands. We have our own throne of Moabites, and they have their own as Canaanites. Okay, I'm surprised that Moraberg didn't pop up. I know it's around here. I'd be disappointed if I didn't save it. It would be great. Okay, Siege of Mora. See, that's why I didn't write it down right. That's why it didn't pop up. But like I say, when you stick with something, it's gonna come, it's gonna pop. Siege of Mora. Let's go and get it. So this is the Siege of Mora, and this is the time before it was Germany. As we can see our brothers and sisters in the background right here, dark-skinned people. They're gonna try to rewrite history and say it was slaves. No, I'm gonna show you 100% that's false. These people were the dark-skinned inhabitants of this place, and German racists came and kicked them out, and that's what the Hitler in Germany debacle was about with Jesse Owens. This is a straight hijack. Mora, the siege of Moraberg. See that right there. The siege of Moraberg, Cameroon, German Empire, German Cameroon, right? That's what it was called. Now, this is the English Slavic people kicking out the dark-skinned people out of Europe even more. First World War broke out in Europe, began the task of conquering Germany, African colonies. So this is the colonies of the dark-skinned people actually who had white workers or Slavic workers. And more than likely, this was the military hand of Yemeni or those Yemenis, Ethiopian like sympathizers, people in that Jewish background, because in Yemeni, I think they have the Sephardim. They have those people there, and they have some hardcore Muslim in Yemeni. And these are power players of this war. Madi Guri, whatever that means. Madi Guri. Nagada River in Africa. Capital in Africa. Wow, look at this. We got to go and check this out. Sound like Mardi Gras. German fort. So this is the hijacking of history. British occupation of Saba. I told you, this is the British attack on the remaining of the dark-skinned leaders in Europe, because they're doing the ethnic cleansing and they're rewriting history with these leprous people who was banished out of Egypt. And anybody with a relationship to the sun cult, the sun worshippers of the old world, these albinos is on a hell streak to destroy them worldwide. So Dr. Michael Brown is dishonest on so many levels. He would never admit the secret code to destroy Moors and upseat them and uproot them and confound them according to Psalm 83. Let's go over Psalm 83 for the doctor, and then I'm gonna go on with the video. Just wanted to prove that Moraberg, to show y'all the connection of Germany and Africa. No, matter of fact, I can't do that. Let's just say Black Nazi. Let's just say Black Nazi first. Now, when we see the Nazis, let's say Black Nazi soldier. Let's say Black Nazi soldier. That's what we need to say, because to read history. The Weimar Republic. That's what it's called. See, I almost let him escape. Ain't nobody helped me out in the chat either. It's called the Weimar Republic, and I did all of that. Now, it was called the Weimar Republic. This is when you would have found those old Moors and Hispanics from Mexico ruling. As you can see, that is not a white man. They are rewriting this history, trying to make these people white. Yeah, they hired white people in Moorish territories, or these Slavs. These are all Slavic workers. And their leaders is going to take over and rewrite history. All these people are Slavs. That is their race, and they are in denial. They are in deep denial, and they try to cling on to everybody and say, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. But their Slavic bloodline will always tell the tale, because they're identical to Slavs. Now, this is the hijack. This is the Weimar Republic. As we can see, Saladin Blackbird, This is some of Saladin's land, who was a mighty leader and conqueror of Slavs. Conqueror. Now, this was the Weimar government, is the name of the German government between the imperial. They're not imperial. They're just worker people getting their freedom in World War I, Slav. They became Germany later because they were called germ people, right? And that could be substantiated. That could be substantiated. These claims is just not coming from me. But it was renamed, and that's when the African American people were banned. Look at this right here. It says it. It says it. Right here, it says it. Look. Go back. The erasure of people of African descent in Nazi Germany, 2017. They're erasing people over here. They're erasing people over there. Now, let me put ice cream on the cake, because we know the Ethiopians, the Amharic people, are close friends with the Germans and Italians, who they're trying to claim relationship to. Marita's meals show us white people in America under the Ethiopian called Merit Ethiopia. They're called Meritas. Merit Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a short word. It means division. It is not a real nation of people. They are called Meriti. Merit Ethiopians. I can go and prove that. They have their own channel on Instagram. This is the people they had working, the young Slavic people in America. Young Slavic people working, showing you the workers. And this was during the German period. After the German period was usurped, that's when these people got their freedom and started rewriting history all throughout the world. Let Michael Brown explain these child laborers in America and how they with no slave master. These children were not slave masters. They was not beating nobody with no whips. They was too busy picking cotton themselves. They was picking cotton, dirty little Slav children in America, and they're going to try to get them a fake Irish history. They're not Irish, they're Slavic. So that's done with that. Let's go back to the video. Didn't want to seem insulting. I just want to be factual. As we can see, the Weimar Republic given to the German government. The German was later, 1933. It was before. And the Holocaust, the true Holocaust, is the fact that Japan and Germany were allies. A historically brown racist people was allied with Nazi Germany. That don't make no sense for so-called white people to be allied with people who don't like them. It's a lie. And Michael Brown was let off the hook by Guerilla Hebrew. Now let's go and finish it off. Let's finish off the video. Go on and get the rest of it.
Dots on the side of my name on YouTube, not on StreamYard. But debate's going excellent so far. I'm very pleased with how many people we got here. Thank you again to Brother Berea for holding this down and making this happen. Okay, we are going to enter into the first rebuttal. The way rebuttals are supposed to work, it's not supposed to be introduction of new information. It is supposed to be a response, follow-up to what has been presented thus far. That's the way rebuttals are supposed to work. So we have two of these back to back. Of course, Dr. Brown goes first, Alazar goes second. And so it's 20 minutes total, 10 minutes each. So Dr. Brown, are you ready for your 10-minute rebuttal? Just a minute, let me set this timer. I'm going to change it from 17 to 10. I'm going to start as soon as you start speaking, and then I will mute myself. Go ahead, it's your first rebuttal.
All right, boy, I'm really disappointed. It even gets into personal attacks. You see him shuffle. Alazar, I thought you were going to step higher than that. I encourage you to do so, because all it does is disqualify your position. I conceded nothing, forfeited nothing. And in point of fact, some of the points you make are bizarre beyond belief. Let's start with Harry Abramson. You completely misrepresented what he said. He did not say that the Jews go back to Onkelos, a convert, and the source from Jewish Virtual Library didn't say that either. He said things can be traced back to Colonos in Italy. And then if you look to Harry Abramson, his most recent videos, you know that he says that the most recent major studies just from the end of last year, so absolutely up to date, have been released. All right. And this is by a large team of geneticists. They have said, yes, we can trace these people back to Italy in the 1st century, and then we can trace them genetically back to ancient Middle Eastern people. What you said about and Onkelos is a name similar to Colonymus. That's all it is. It's not saying it's the same descent. All it's saying, where we find the name Colonymus earlier, there's a similar name to it in the Talmud, but others have different names for it. He's not tracing it back. You completely misrepresented what he said. Folks, check the sources. And you want to see if Harry Abramson agrees with all this or actually absolutely not. And by the way, when I said Hebrew Israelites, I'm talking about the One West, those in the 90s identified actually as Black Hebrew Israelites. Just for clarity, I'm not speaking of all Hebrew Israelites, because I know many of you have the sense to completely reject the bogus chart. I didn't mention the Igbos specifically, but remember, if what you're saying is true, if what others are saying is true, then the chart cannot possibly refer to legitimate children of Israel, because God said you'll be left scant, few in number, all right, not 400, 500, 600 million, whatever the total number would be. That alone disqualifies it. Absolutely 100%. Let's hear a specific response to that. Also, oral traditions were mentioned, right? Like the Lemba people. They're in South Africa now, Bantu-speaking background Lemba people. They had a tradition that they came from ancient Israel, and the Buba clan, particularly among them, that they were of priestly descent. And here's what DNA found. DNA found that a large percentage of their men, because it is paternal, is through the father that priestly descent is made, that a large percentage of the men had this Y chromosome that was unique. And they also did a survey of Jews who, through tradition of the centuries, have said, yes, last name of Cohen, things like that. They traced themselves back to the ancient priestly tribe and priestly family of Aaron. And when you actually go through it, what do you discover? That over 50% of Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardi Jews who identified as Kohanim have the same priestly gene as do the Lemba people. How does that happen? Because genetics can tell you certain things very, very clearly and can point to common origins in the Middle East. Again, you want a list of geneticists. This is the list I was looking for. This is on the most recent study, some of the premier geneticists in the world. I can put it up for you. It's too much just to grab in 1 second and take me all day to read it. Some of the most prestigious folks in the world have said, yes, we can trace Jews back very accurately now, Ashkenazi Jews very accurately to an ancient Middle Eastern heritage. Here's the other thing DNA can tell you, that the Ashkenazi Jews have things in common with other Middle Eastern Jews as opposed to with other Europeans on a higher level. Genetics can tell you that. So what genetics can tell you is very important. As for linguistics, the Hebrew language has been passed on through the centuries. The Mexicans have not been using it. The Haitians have not been using it. The Native Americans have not been using it. That's not who's been using it. The people who have been using it know how it's pronounced, know how it's been passed on. You have a completely butchered, manufactured version of Hebrew that is being used, LQ, right? Completely bogus. You can't even, how can you trust the people who can't even pronounce the language or come near a proper pronunciation of it, can't even recognize a mater lectionis, a mother of reading, a vowel letter, and make it into a consonant? How can you trust them to have other authentic truths? The fact is, there is nothing to connect the peoples of these specific tribes, zero, except some bizarre taking a verse out of context to connect them to anybody on the 12 tribes chart. Let me go back to the PowerPoint if I can. Can we put that back up, sir? Just give me a second while, Brother Berean, can you get my PowerPoint back up?
Are we able to put the PowerPoint back up? Are we able to put the PowerPoint back up? Okay.
Well, tell you what, give me just a couple extra seconds because we didn't get that. I'll just go back
I'll pause for 10 seconds.
All right. So, all right, we're good. I'll just read these things. I'll just read these things myself then. So Dr. Paul Wexler and some other Tel Aviv University professors were mentioned. Their views have been thoroughly discredited by a wide range of scholars, and that is commonly known. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are actually converts of the Khazars, which is another theory that comes up. At most, a small amount of them may have converted Khazars, and then they've been lost through history. 2 centuries later, the Spanish Jewish rabbi Chasta Ibn Shafrid sent emissaries to inquire if the story was true. That's how little lasting evidence there was of this alleged massive Khazar conversion, let alone the Khazar Jews allegedly being the originators of Ashkenazi Jewry. And it should also be pointed out that the Khazar kingdom appears to have been destroyed by 1000 AD with no mention of Jews in that region after that for 400 years. And then linguistically, there is absolutely no linguistic connection between the Khazarian people who spoke a Turkic language, which is what Dr. Paul Wexler was trying to argue, and Ashkenazi Jews whose first language, Yiddish, is very close to German. Yiddish linguist and onomastic expert Dr. Alexander Bieder has stated the corpus of personal names and surnames borne by Jews in Eastern Europe during the last 6 centuries, as well as the Yiddish language as a whole, do not contain any link to Khazaria. Check the scholarly literature on it. Dr. Bieder has followed, not Dr. Wexler. And as for linguistic reputation, in the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe over the past 6 centuries, not a single Turkic name can be found in documents listing Jewish names. Even in documents from the 15th and 16th centuries dealing with Jews who lived in the territories of modern Ukraine and Belarus, no such names. And there is no connection genetically between Ashkenazi Jewish DNA, and Turkic, Khazarian DNA. So when you dig a little deeper, you hear these bombastic claims being made. Yeah, let's put the PowerPoint down. I'm not actually using that, so thank you. You can remove that.
PowerPoint down, please.
Yeah. I didn't even know it was up. I was just reading from those other slides. So sorry if there was anything confusing there. But in point of fact, this is really simple. You look at the people of Haiti who are allegedly Levi. They don't observe the 7th-day Sabbath. They don't circumcise their sons on the 8th day. They don't teach Torah to Israel. Well, according to the word of God, that is their role. All right. So they are disqualified. When you go through tribe after tribe, if you go around the people of Central America, there's no long-standing oral tradition. They all come from the 12 tribes of Israel. And they are not Middle Eastern. In fact, their colors are a little darker. They're not Middle Eastern. There's no equivalency there. You know what it's like? Some of the proofs that Al-Azhar is raising, it's like saying, well, my last name's Brown, so that proves I'm brown. I must be brown skinned. Or I wear a hood, so I must be from the hood. I mean, it's this kinds of ridiculous arguments that are being made. And as for people robbed and plundered, isn't it interesting that how quickly we forget that 2 out of 3 European Jews were slaughtered in the Holocaust? That 3 million out of 3 million Polish Jews were slaughtered in the Holocaust. My people, Ashkenazi, that we have been kicked out of country after country after country. Why are we back in the land? Because God in his mercy promised it, not because of us, but because of his mercy in Ezekiel, the 36th chapter, not because of our works, but because of his mercy. And hate crimes. Are you aware that religious hate crimes in America, the #1 targeted group is Jewish people? And you know what causes a lot of it? The kind of rhetoric that we hear in some of these radical Hebrew Israelite sectors.
A minute
It
30.
traces back directly to these very things on social media and beyond. Let me also say, as for Ezekiel, it's very simple. He was to lay on his side 1 day each for the sins and iniquity of Israel, 390 years for Israel. So this is Israel's sin. He lays on the side for 390 days because of Israel's sin in the past, and Judah's sin 40 days. So the 40 years of their sin. Read it in Ezekiel 4. It's not a prophecy about the suffering of African Americans in the United States. It's not related to that anymore. And if you want to find the people on the earth right now, the most robbed, the most plundered, the most attacked, that would be Christians in countries like Nigeria, where they're persecuted by the Muslim majority, or Christians in countries like North Korea, where they're slaughtered. You can't just say, well, because this fits, that we throw out the rest of history, we throw out the rest of tradition, we throw out DNA, we throw out genetics, we throw out all of that because a verse seems to apply to somebody somewhere. You can't do that. There's nothing scholastic, academic, truthful, accurate about it whatsoever. I would like to see some actual proof, not all the speculation, but some actual proof. That would be delightful. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Had about 10 seconds left to spare. If Al-Azhar, if you, at any point during your rebuttal,
logic from being Levites? See, but here's the thing. According to the Bible, the Levites in the last days would not be teaching the law. So let's read this. Ezekiel 44, and starting at 10. And the Levites that are gone away from me when Israel went astray, which went astray from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. top of that, admittedly, the majority of Jewry is secular. So that means the majority of people who would be Kohanim do not teach Israel their laws either. Would that then disqualify them? We see how problematic and contradictory the logic of Dr. Michael Brown is here. He also said a couple other very interesting things. He said he did not mention Igbo particularly. Well, yes, you did. In a video on your channel called Has the World Gone Crazy 10 years ago, I mean, not 10 years ago, 10 days ago, you affirmed the legitimacy of the Igbo's claim to Israelite descent, right? Moving on. He also said, so he also talked about the tradition and as if the tradition validates them. But in his book, the 60 questions, right? 60 questions, I think, to ask, or 60 questions for a Jewish man about Jesus, something to that effect. Forgive me if I'm misquoting his book, but on page 96, he affirms that many Israelites, in fact, lost their identity. So the keeping of the traditions does not validate or invalidate anybody from being an Israelite, right? He also went to Deuteronomy 28:62 and said, because there's so many Black and Hispanic people, that means we can't be Israelites. Let's read Hosea 1:10. It reads, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. So yes, at a time there might have been a small remnant, but he and I both know that Deuteronomy 28 happens cyclically, and not every single curse applies at every single time and instance. Like every time Israel went under curses, the 68th verse, they didn't always go into slavery on ships to Egypt, now did that. Now he says that in order for us to be Israelites, Deuteronomy 28 and 68 would have to be contradicted. I need him to demonstrate when the Ashkenazi Jews fulfilled Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And if I follow your logic, that means that you guys can't be Jews either now. But how silly is that? Because we all know that at different times, different sectors of those curses are susceptible to befall the Israelites anytime they're backslidden or in iniquity, right? And then also, I've not mentioned Khazars at all. So all that Khazar talk, he's just wasting time and beating up a strong man. I have made zero mention of the Khazars whatsoever in my argumentation. I'm actually taking a look at the research done by Ashkenazi Jewish geneticists and linguists, and we're looking at the conclusions that they are coming to. Nothing that he's saying as far as DNA actually disproves anything that I'm forwarding. He's just saying, I mean, the people who are saying we're Jews, we're related, and we have some link back to the Middle East genetically. None of that substantiates somebody as being an Israelite. I'm gonna go now back to my presentation if I could. Okay. There we go. Okay, perfect.
Briefly pause it
Thank you.
until you start speaking again.
I'm ready. Yeah, so let's go into Paul Wechsler, an Ashkenazi Jewish linguist, and let's take a look at a professor of linguistics at Tel Aviv University. Let's take a look at what he had to say, right? Recently, the geographical origins of Ashkenazi Jews and their native language Yiddish were investigated by applying the geographic population structure to a cohort of exclusively Yiddish-speaking and multilingual Ashkenazi Jews. GPS localized most Ashkenazi Jews along major trade routes in northeastern Turkey adjacent to primeval villages with names that resemble the word Ashkenaz. These findings were compatible with the hypothesis of an Irano-Turco-Slavic origin for Ashkenazi Jews and a Slavic origin for Yiddish, and at odds with the Rhineland hypothesis advocating a Levantine origin for Ashkenazi Jews. So the findings of this Ashkenazi Jew and the team that he went into linguistically and genetically studied these people, the Ashkenazi Jews, he came to the conclusion that they actually are not from the Levant or the Middle East, and German origins for Yiddish. We discussed genetic structure of Ashkenazi Jews and their geographical origins as inferred from multiple studies, employing both modern and ancient and original ancient DNA analysis. We provide additional validation to the non-Levantine or non-Middle Eastern origin of Ashkenazi Jews using ancient DNA from the Near East and Levant. So they went and got Middle Eastern ancient DNA, and it disqualified the Ashkenazi Jews from that being their place of origin. This is an Ashkenazi Jew himself, again, who was a professor of linguistics at Tel Aviv University, right? And our results reinforce the non-Levantine origin of the Ashkenazi Jews. And again, you can go to this. This is a peer-reviewed article in the Frontiers of Genetics called The Origin of the Ashkenaz, Ashkenazic, and Yiddish. Moving on. More problems with DNA linguistics. They're alleging their DNA haplogroups and linguistics of Eleatine origin proves they're children of Israel. The problem with that is we say they're Edomites. Edomites' DNA would say they're from the Levant, and their language would match as they spoke Hebrew as well. The same goes for Canaanites, Moabites, Ammonites, and others. So just as they're trying to utilize this to make them validate that they're Israelites, we can easily use the same exact information and say they're Edomites, right? Moving on. Not to mention the Ashkenazi Jews come from primarily 4 different haplogroups: J1, J2, E1B1E, and R1A. If they are the legit children of Jacob, why don't they all come from one? Now, again, I don't subscribe to the idea that a DNA haplogroup could trace you back into antiquity. I simply don't. But he does, and he's using it. He's hinging his argumentation upon it, right? There is no one haplogroup amongst them that is a majority. Therefore, if we just went with one of them, just one haplogroup, as being Jacob's haplogroup, the majority of them would still be disqualified from being the legitimate children of Israel. What do I mean? There was a test done in 2004 on over 400 Jews. This is the largest test study that I can find. And take a look. So if we just chose one, let's say we said E1B1B was Jacob's haplogroup, right? That means that 84% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified, right? If I chose G2C, 92% of Ashkenazi Jews disqualified. J1 or J2, 81% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified. Q1, 94% of Ashkenazi Jews would be disqualified, right? So on and so forth. So this alleged evidence that he has so much faith in actually totally works against it. Moving on. But let's follow Dr. Brown's logic for a second.
Wash your hands,
Right.
okay?
I'm good. I'm done.
I apologize. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I was just trying to do it early because you got a little break. I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So let's look at the Mexicans, because he said, ain't no way the Mexicans are Issachar. Okay, if we follow Dr. Brown's logic, a significant amount of the Mexican population belongs to the haplogroup Q, which is present in antiquity in the Levant, right? So when Spaniards came, right, they noticed that the tribe of Issachar, the Mexicans, right, the indigenous Mexicans had obsidian knives that they used for circumcision, which is known as a Jewish rite. So here we see a tradition. We see DNA linking them to the Middle East, and we see a Jewish tradition, right? It also says the Nawa Uto-Aztecan language itself has been shown to have many Hebraic Semitic roots and can be traced to northwest Palestine, where parts of the Israelite tribe of Issachar settled. And this is via Robert Moran, a historian from the University of Manchester and the University of California at Riverside, right? Moving on. This also, he says there's no ancient oral tradition that says that these people are from the tribe of Issachar. The Mexicans originally of the 10 tribes captured by Salmanasar and of the family of Issachar, whom the Indians recognized as their special ancestor. What? Right? So if we follow Dr. Brown's logic, we have genetic and linguistic evidence coupled with tradition that ties Mexican people to the tribe of Issachar. We also had a city in Mexico called Issachar de Matamoros in southwestern part of the Mexican state of Puebla. Puebla is Spanish for village. So basically this place is called the village of Issachar. So that checks off the tribe of Issachar by all the standards in which Dr. Michael Brown told me to do, and it proves them and it links them directly to him genetically, traditionally, and linguistically. Moving on.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Here we see in Deuteronomy 28:45, Deuteronomy 28:45 to 46, that the curses will be upon the Israelites for a sign forever. This would be a token, a banner, an omen, and we're going to go more into that. Most High will on my next round. All praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. I yield my time with that.
10 seconds. All right, with 10 seconds left. Apologize for that. I jumped in too early. But
You good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to the live chat, you guys are mainly doing okay. You're mainly doing okay. But let me just encourage you. Only make
It's one at a time. Let's start with the fact that Lazar said he didn't say a word about Hazaria, and then he keeps quoting Paul Wexler. What do you think Paul Wexler was talking about? That's what all of Paul Wexler's arguments were about, trying to see if there's any truth to the legend about Ashkenazi Jews coming from Khazar. That's why I refuted it. You didn't even realize what I was refuting was the very thing you were referring to and quoting him about. He has been completely dismantled in his arguments by Dr. Alexander Bieder, who is a top onomasticist and a scholar of the Yiddish language as well. He has demolished Dr. Wexler's arguments very, very clearly, as have others. It's an outlying view that's been demolished and rejected. So throughout the whole Khazar thing, the Kalonymous thing completely misinterpreted that. Throw that out. You still haven't given proof about Ashkenazi Jews who, in fact, have kept the traditions, preserved the language, observed the Sabbath. We're the ones that have observed it. You get some alleged account of somewhere in Mexico that somebody has a stone that's like a circumcision stone. The Mexicans don't circumcise their children on the 8th day. That has not been a long-term custom among them. Where you do find Hispanic Jews that have been hidden, they are now Christians, and it turns out that they converted centuries ago outwardly under pressure from Catholicism when they were in Spain and the Iberian Peninsula. They go back to Sephardic Jews, others that you reject as being real and legitimate Jews. As for Deuteronomy 28:62, Israel in exile means Israel is still under judgment. And if you're telling me that Israel under judgment fulfills Hosea 1 about the massive multiplication of the children of Israel all around the world, then you are contradicting scripture, and we have to throw it out completely. As for Haiti, you want Haiti to be Levi without teaching Torah and without following the Jewish law, but you also want Haiti to somehow be blessed by God in multiplication at the same time. You can't have it both ways. If Haiti is Levi and Levi is in sin and idolatry, then they are not blessed. You never answered the question of if the Levites are scattered all over the different tribes of Israel, how they all ended up in one place. Didn't respond to that whatsoever. As for the Igbo, yeah, I said I didn't mention them tonight. I believe I said that I didn't mention them tonight. You have referenced them in the past, but you brought them up. Just want to clarify, I didn't mention that tonight. As for Deuteronomy 28:68, it did happen in history. You're correct. My ancestors, and if you're Israelite, I don't know your ancestry, but if you're actually a Jew, then our ancestors were sold into slavery, into Egypt, and probably 2,000 years ago, the most recent time, but possibly even 2,700 years ago when we were exiled, the 10 northern tribes exiled from by the Assyrians. The Phoenicians may have sold us into slavery in Egypt as well. There's speculation among historians as far as that's concerned. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not the one bringing up modern history and trying to say that the Ashkenazi Jews were sold back into slavery. This is an argument I'm responding to in terms of going back into Egypt. This is an argument I'm responding to because Hebrew Israelites raise it all the time to say Egypt just means a house of bondage, which it doesn't. It occurs over 680 times. Mitzrayim, Egypt, occurs over 680 times in the Hebrew Bible, and it always refers to a physical place. Therefore, you can read throughout the Torah where it talks about you were slaves in Egypt under Pharaoh. You were slaves in Egypt under Pharaoh, and I delivered you from there. But under judgment, you'll be sold back there. Right? So don't bring that up with the African slave trade. Don't bring that up with modern America. It has nothing to do with it whatsoever. And America is not Egypt. If you try to make it that, you're misusing the word, and therefore, by your own criteria, disqualify yourself as being a true or legitimate Jew based on your misusing of Scripture. As for the Aztec quote, it's completely bogus. The fellow you mentioned, I actually went to the website. The whole thing is completely bogus. It's based on someone allegedly seeing certain things with the language. There is no connection between Aztec and Northern Israel. Zero. I challenge everyone. Study it out. Look into it. Look at the best linguists on Aztec, all right? And I've been introduced by Al-Azhar repeatedly. I'm a top scholar, etc. My PhD is in Near Eastern languages and literatures. I can speak with authority about these kinds of things when it comes to language and linguistic origin. There is zero connection whatsoever. That quote from online is completely bogus. Anyone that looks into it will find it. You just throw something out. Notice when Al-Azhar wants to point to something with some scholastic background, says peer-reviewed, etc. Okay, so those we take more seriously, and then the other scholars say, no, that's wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, all right? As happened with Dr. Paul Wexler and some of these others who were denying Ashkenazi Jewry going back to ancient Israel. But these internet sources that are just thrown up for you, utterly, completely bogus. If you get all excited about these things, say, we proved our point, I truly and genuinely and honestly pity you. What I find fascinating is Al-Azhar says he's Haitian and he feels attacked by my rejecting the idea that Haitians are Levi. And again, we got zero proof. To this moment, we have zero proof whatsoever for a single person on the chart connecting back to a specific tribe in ancient Israel in any specific way. And if you will look into Mexican DNA, the original Mexican people, you will find there is not any type of strong Middle Eastern connection. Do the research, search it out, you'll find it without. But this God promised, preserved as a people. And then you have all these different groups who are massively unrelated. You talk about genetic disconnection, just go among these different groups and check out the genetic history of Native Americans, for example, and trace these various things out. And again, as I mentioned at the outset, Native Americans here in America before Israel was even formed as a nation. They have history, you have archaeology, you have language tradition, not just some internet myth or some random quote. Look at the people who've been here this whole time. Look at the people who've been here without break. Look at the people who've been kicked out of countries as Jews. Look at the people who've suffered as Jews. Look at the people who've been faithful to circumcise their sons and observe the Sabbath and have not been cut off because of that. Even in exile, God said he would preserve us. Jeremiah 31, verses 35 to 37, make it absolutely clear no matter what we do, God will preserve us and keep us and bring us back. So I mentioned at the outset, bogus Hebrew, that was never refuted. I mentioned bogus connections, never refuted. Even the alleged origin of Azteca going back to Hebrew, completely, utterly bogus. Notice that nothing that I have presented in terms of factual evidence thus far has been refuted or answered. Rather, different information thrown up that can confuse those not familiar. Those who are familiar will see the truth. May the Most High, may God Almighty reveal it to you. Thank you.
Wow, at 1 second. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I never introduced that into the argument. So what's funny is he wants me to argue points that I have not presented, I have not utilized. He said I didn't review his bogus Hebrew, the alleged claims of bogus Hebrew, because that's not the topic of this debate. So why then would I entertain that? He also said I didn't refute the eyes to cock. I never introduced that into the argument. So what's funny is he wants me to argue points that I have not presented. I have not utilized that in my argumentation to prove any of my points. So then why would I address it? Does it need to be addressed? It's not what I'm talking about tonight. Coincidentally, when I asked him to show how the Ashkenazim fulfilled Deuteronomy 28:68, he coincidentally gets to go to, oh, well, the ancestors did it. Well, wait a minute. We don't get that same ancestral courtesy that the Ashkenazi get. And that's what's funny. And notice he's just calling things bogus. He's not showing, proving, and demonstrating that things are bogus. And you know what we call that? I'm white and I said so. That's what we call that. I'm white and I said so. Because I'm white, I said it. I have a PhD, so it has to be true. I don't have to demonstrate or prove anything, right? Very coincidental. Now, he said Mexicans and Haitians, we don't circumcise the 8th day. We don't keep the Sabbath. And it's very simple. It's because we're affected by Deuteronomy 28. So let's read Deuteronomy 28:64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou nor their fathers have known, even wood and stone. We've been all forced to worship a white Jesus in Christianity, where they told us we don't need to circumcise ourselves. That's why it's like that, sir. So in understanding that, we fit that. Can you demonstrate where the Ashkenazim have been scattered from one end of the earth to the other, and then are having to serve other gods where they are not allowed to keep that, right? You talked about the Sephardim. What about the Ashkenazim, right? Also, he just read Ezekiel 4. He didn't explain anything about it. I asked you, I challenged you, right? As I challenged you on very many other points that you have yet to respond to. So many numerous that I can't even list them now. Ezekiel 4, demonstrate how the Ashkenazim have lived through Ezekiel 4, a 430-year oppression, right? And then the Paul Wexler thing, yes, he may have faulty arguments trying to validate you guys being Khazars. I didn't introduce the Khazars. I'm talking about the findings of his genetic and linguistic testing that disqualifies or lends credence away from your Levantine origin. I'm talking about the empirical scientific data that was discovered. I'm not talking about his arguments of you being Khazar. So let's make sure that we stay on topic, right? I'm going to pull my PowerPoint back up now, vocab.
In your time at 7 minutes and 9 seconds, so you can pull up your PowerPoint.
Perfect, perfect.
When you begin speaking again, I'll resume it.
All praise, I'm ready. So
Okay.
Here's Deuteronomy 28, and again, it will be a sign, right, that will be on. Matter of fact, let me go back. Right, it says it will be a sign, a distinguishing mark, a banner, remembrance, a miraculous sign. So there would be a miraculous distinguishing mark or sign that would be on the Israelites, and it's called the curses, right? So let's just highlight a few of these curses, right? Cursed in rural and urban environments. That's interesting, kind of like, you know, when the Great Migration was happening back in the day, and Black people were leaving the oppressive hills of the South and going to the Midwest, to the East Coast, to the West Coast. And guess what happened when they got to the cities? Oh, it was hell there, right? Kind of like that. Or like a lot of us who come from the Caribbean, we try to escape third world poverty, and we come to America, and guess what? It's still cursed there, right? Now, also, be by and large unproductive, right? So let's take a look at the productivity that Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian people have versus, let's say, the Ashkenazi. Are they productive people? And are we unproductive people by and large? I mean, I'll let the listening audience be their own judge of that, right? And why is that? It's not for lack of ingenuity, lack of creativity, lack of work ethic. We have all those things, but for some reason, can you show me where the Ashkenazim are dead in the streets like dogs presently? Right? Skip down now. To be oppressed and robbed with no one to deliver. Again, they were the
9 seconds, so you can pull up your PowerPoint.
In urban environments. That's interesting. Kind of like, you know, when the Great Migration was happening back in the day, and Black people were leaving the oppressive hills of the South and going to the Midwest, to the East Coast, to the West Coast. And guess what happened when they got to the cities? Oh, it was hell there, right? Kind of like that. Or like a lot of us who come from the Caribbean, we try to escape third world poverty, and we come to America, and guess what? It's still cursed there, right? Now, also, be by and large unproductive, right? So let's take a look at the productivity that Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian people have versus, let's say, the Ashkenazi. Are they productive people? And are we unproductive people by and large? I mean, I'll let the listening audience be their own judge of that, right? And why is that? It's not for lack of ingenuity, lack of creativity, lack of work ethic. We have all those things, but for some reason, we are plagued, we are cursed as people of color in these Americas with being unproductive. Why? Left dead in the streets by dogs. Cops killing us, we killing each other. We're dead in the streets like dogs. Can you show me where the Ashkenazim are dead in the streets like dogs presently? Right? Skip down now. To be oppressed and robbed with no one to deliver. Again, they were delivered. The curses say that nobody was going to deliver. When you guys went through the oppression and the hell of the Holocaust, you were delivered, and not by the Messiah, right? By the armies of the world, by the nations of the world. Not by the Messiah. The curses say nobody would be there to deliver, right? It says another man would benefit more from your labor than you. Have you ever heard of the entertainment industry, the record industry, where the executives thereof are disproportionately Ashkenazi Jews, and a lot of the entertainers, right, whose labors are being profited from, far more than they're profiting, are Black and Hispanic, right? This is exactly what God said the Israelites would be experiencing, what Black and Hispanic people are experiencing. I need him to demonstrate how the Ashkenazim are experiencing this, right? Moving on, right? It says foreigners will come into your community and quickly surpass you socioeconomically. Who is going into Ashkenazi Jew communities, right, who is not a Jew, and then surpassing them socioeconomically? Oh, nobody. But if we go to our communities, Jews are landlords, business owners, Asians, landlords, business owners, East Indians, landlords, business owners, Arabs, landlords, business owners, right? In no time. Moving on. It also talks about we'd be forced to serve our oppressors' deities, and things of that nature. I want to move on though. Right, let's go to some of these tribes. Want to get to some of these, right? So in the book Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, Antonio Montesinos gives his testimony on his interaction with the Seminole Indians, a part of the larger Muskogee people, right? And they say here that they were from the tribe of Reuben, and the tribe of Joseph was on an island nearby. Of course, the Seminole Indians are there in Florida. Near Florida is what, Cuba and Puerto Rico, right? So then we have the tribes of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Reuben, all summed up in the ancient tradition and heritage there, right? Or in the historical documentation, right? Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto death in the high places of the field. And these are the type of places in which the Andean civilizations of Chile and Argentina began to develop themselves, in the high places of the field. Again, we've already demonstrated the overlapping curses and prophecies that would be affecting the Israelites clearly fit the description of Black and Hispanic people. So now we go through the more specific things for the tribes to identify the tribes, right? Moving on. So that's Naphtali there. Boom. Gad, Deuteronomy 33:20. And of Gad, he shall be blessed is he that enlargeth Gad, which is why Gad has such a larger land allotment than the other tribes here in the Americas. They have all of, the United States pretty much, and Canada. And it says, he dwelleth as a lion and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. Now that's interesting. So that word for crown of the head there is Strong's H6936, and it also means scalp. Interestingly enough, tearing of the scalp is a custom found prevalent amongst who? Native American Indians, right? We see this here in the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? So that lets us know about the tribe of Gad. Right, going on to Asher now, Deuteronomy 33:24-25. And of Asher, he said, let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren. Let him dip his foot in oil, and thy shoes shall be iron and brass. And as thy days, so shall thy strength be. The word iron in Strong's H1270 is Brasal. Interestingly enough, sounds a lot like Brazilian, which we would say would be the tribe of Asher. But also,
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Thank you. But also oil, right? Large quantities of oil and natural gas are found in several areas within South America. Venezuela also has major deposits of oil and natural gas in the area surrounding El Tigre. The country is one of the world's largest oil producers. See that? Oil? But it also said, it also said that their shoes shall be iron, and there is unprecedented levels of iron, ore, and other metals that also are in this land that is allotted to the tribe of Asher, according to the chart. Moving on, Zebulun shall be at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships. If you look at the ancient tribal allotment of Zebulun, they, of course, are landlocked. So we see here that the Central America has things like the Panama Canal, other things being developed in Nicaragua, and the most ships in the world are passing through them daily, right?
1 minute.
Tribe of Zebulun, right? 1 minute. Hold on. My fault. Say that. I'm gonna say that for the conclusion. So yeah. So as we can see here, I have presented evidence to support Black and Hispanic people in general being Israelites, and then I went into particular scripture and historical references to give us the particulars on the tribes and some of the surface level reasons as to why we come to these conclusions on which tribe is which. Right. A few more left on the list. So just stay tuned in my conclusion. I'll complete this through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Again, we give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua.
We have 25 seconds left.
That's good. I'll yield that time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Again, shout out to the debaters. I appreciate the way this has been going down. Each one should be 30 seconds, no longer. And the answer no longer than 2 minutes. During this time, if you are being cross-examined, you are not supposed to ask questions. You're not supposed to ask questions of the other person. They do not have to answer any question, and it needs to be on topic. That's the way these things work best, and that really is the rules as well. So with that, Dr. Brown, once you start with your first question to Alazar, I am going to start the time. I'm going to stay on the screen for this just because there's a bunch of little times, and I'm going to do my best to try to keep it. But you guys have been great so far, so I don't foresee any problems. But go ahead.
All right, when I had mentioned Hebrew errors, I was talking about things that you've actually said, referred to, including tonight. So the Hebrew for bronze or for iron is not brazal. That's incorrect. So there goes your argument. So how do you respond when your Hebrew as teka that you said previously in the 3-hour lecture relating back to Hebrew, that's 100% false. So how do you explain these very, very bogus errors if we're supposed to take your words seriously?
Well, number one, I didn't present eyes to God at all tonight. So I don't believe that it's fair that I be held to scrutiny on things that I may not necessarily stand on. If I didn't introduce that argumentation, sir, I don't believe it's fair that you even question me on it.
Okay, just for clarity, you brought in arguments that I've made. So how is it okay that you brought in arguments I didn't make tonight, but I can't bring arguments that you've made if you didn't make them tonight?
Do you think it's unfair that I did that?
I have no problem with it, but you're not letting me do the same with you.
That's my own personal position to do that.
Okay, fine. So you're completely wrong about the Hebrew word for iron.
Okay.
All right, so we throw that out. All right, let's go over to Gad.
I can't ask you a question, but you're just saying that.
Well, the Hebrew is Barzell. Anyone who knows Hebrew, it's Barzell. It's not Barzell. It's Barzell.
Okay, so let's say I mispronounced it. I didn't pronounce it right. My point still stands as I'm just pointing out the eerie similarity that word has to Brazil, in which we say is of the tribal allotment of Asher. That was my point. Oops, I mispronounced it according to you.
No, you didn't mispronounce it. It's a made up word. That's number one. But
okay, I don't want to ask. I can't ask a question, but just for the audience now, Brazil and Brazil. I mean,
Barzell versus Brazil are two different words. The one made up, the second real. But it also says Barzell and Nechoshet. Okay, it mentions iron and it mentions bronze. Where's Nechoshet? Please show me. If you're going to pull out one, you can't just pull something out of a verse and say that's Brazil because it sounds like it. Look, show me where Nechoshet is.
I didn't make the definitive statement that was Brazil. As I just said, I just simply pointed out the eerie similarity. That's all I did.
Okay. Well, there's no eerie similarity. We just pull one verse out. But anyway, about Gad, you just cited that it could well speak about the Native Americans who scalped people. But the Hebrew says it says that he will taraf zroa af kadkod, so that he will rip off the arm and the forehead. So where was the Native American tradition of ripping off the arm?
I don't know of one.
I think the Comanche, if not mistaken, the Comanches.
Okay, thank you. So we disqualify that one there.
I disagree.
Well, let the audience decide. Okay.
Of course.
All right, and you are aware of other people like the Scythians, etc., in antiquity who scalp victims. Maybe they could be the people.
Well, that would be true if I was only basing it upon that.
Okay, fine. Let others decide if you have any actual proof for the connection there. All right, so explain to me how, if Haiti is Levite and the Levites were mingled and scattered among all the tribes and then exiled with all the different tribes all around the world, how they end up all in one place off the coast of America?
Well, Dr. Michael Brown, if you actually were familiar with people of the Caribbean, you would understand that the Haitian diaspora is one of the biggest diasporas in the world, and that there are predominant large groups of Haitians in the diaspora and amongst all other Black and Hispanic people in the Americas, especially. I'm going to be presenting that here in my next round.
No, I'm quite aware of that. There are actually Jews scattered among all those peoples as well. But how did they all end up in one place, or so many in one place? That's never happened in Israelite history. How did it happen here?
It's never happened in Israelite history. So how about when we take a look in the Bible, when the kingdom split and all the Levites who were in the northern kingdom then resorted to Rehoboam? That means there would be an influx of Levites in one particular place in Jerusalem or in the southern kingdom.
All right, so then they would have ended up among the Judeans. And
yes,
Judeans are African Americans.
So that just to be clear, so that means.
All right, let's stop right here and let's get some clarity. Let's get some clarity right now. So Judean, let's go up in here into Judean history. Let's go and get a Canaan who they try to say is Noah, but it's not Noah. I mean, Moses. They try to say this is Moses, but we know that's not true. So this is the so-called father of the one God religion. the father of the one God religion right here. Everything else is falsehood. So this is the father of monotheism. So that means it's so much confusion, but we know the source. And we can understand these people who are being hijacked for various reasons, as we can see that they're being hijacked because they issued the first unilateral monotheistic religion of belief in one unison God of the Son. So this would be our first Judean. And the word Judean is no different than Aryan. It's just because it's a different pronunciation. It's Adian, Adian, Aryan. They would say Aryan in their language, in their Tona El. It would be Aryan, Adian, Udian, Urian, Urian, Idian, Udian. It's the same word. Judean means Aryan, y'all. It means noble. And this is where they come in with the Aryan supremacy, the Aryan, the Arya, the Aryans of India, the Aryan white supremacists. This is those people. They're a little bit different than typical Slavs and Mongoloids. So those people are calling themselves Jews because you don't understand their Tona El, Judean, Udayan, Aryan, Aryan. That would be their language. Orion, exactly. That's another word for Judean. It's another word. And then they are tricking you with the English language, and you don't have what it takes to comprehend the misinterpretation and mispronunciation of these old words from English. Because English people have a hard time pronouncing these words because of their tonal and tongue and their lingo. So they create a new language called English to properly pronounce some of these old words themselves, which is even more proof this is not their language. So as we can see, these people filling up their cups with the sun and their religion. This is what we're going to get the Judean people from. The nobles are going to come from this class of people. Aryan, exactly. Adian is Adian, Audian. And this is where Judean come from because the J would be silent in some of this language, except when Latin appears, which is a later period, and GS, which is not the language of these people. So let's get out of here. Let's go straight to before I finish this video, let's say what is his name? Yahweh. Yahweh means chicken snake, and then we're gonna go right to Moab. Chicken snake. So let's go in here to the ancient pagan understanding and rebuttals of their claim because they get to make their claims, but we get to test it and we can see who will actually say Jesus. Was Yahweh really the name of a pagan god? Right. Io, similar to Eli, Ilo, there's so many different variations from these different lingos. But most importantly, it was about magic and amulets and, good luck, bad luck. This is what we're dealing with these cultures, with these pagan people who, thought they had magic and needed magic and God and all of that. They thought they needed God. So let's go and read this. Io is the Greek bisyllabic enunciation of Iowa or Yahweh, abbreviation form of the tetragrammaton Yahweh. It is the most attested word of power in ancient magic papyri. So they're using magic, often employed as the name or standing epithet of the supreme God. Non-Jewish Greek sources also use this term for Hebrew God. The name Yahweh is from the pagan Gnostic I-A-O-U-E. Sound like the vowels we use. The Greek word I-A-O-E, E-I-A-O-E, Yahweh, is founded in the writings of Clement of Alexandria and is Gnostic Anguipede, chicken snake, god of war. So they're calling on the god of war to help them win, and you have adopted their god over Ra, which is the true God, Son God, the God that powers of us all, versus a chicken snake. So let's not dwell on that because we've already done that in the past. We got that. And Dr. Brown might not want to address that. Let's go into the R of Moab to show the stealing of Aramorica, Gaul culture, Celtic culture. Let's go and show the stealing of the cities of Moab and Missouri. So we also know that ancient Moab was the actual place. He tries to justify Egypt was actually inside Moab, and I'm going to prove it. R is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible 7 times as the ancient city of Moab. So to be short, I'm not going to dwell on it. I just want you to understand anytime with R in it is the language of Moab. And this is where we're going to get the Aramaic script from and the connection here and the thievery of the Hebrew archaeologist team and melanin hijackers and you melanin hijackers. And it likely meant city. So when we see this R, the city, we're dealing with a Moabitic word. So this is a Moabitic city. So all the R's, the Arkansas, the Aramaic, the Arabic, right? The Archon, it's so many of them. It's so many. I can't even think right now. But I know Aramorica is a critical one because it take us back to the ancient. It take us back to the ancient farmlands of the farm people. Farming the lands, the R of Moab, and now we know why they're using this in their European tales. In their European, the R of Moab. So this would be the city of Moabs, and we know the Slav were not living in these cities, and that's why I asked, what European DNA are they actually measuring your DNA to? Because you don't have pheomelanin, and since you don't have pheomelanin, you would not be marking with Slavic people. If you did have pheomelanin, you would have the R1A gene, which is actually a sub-Sahel African genetic. That's why they call themselves Africans, because Slavic people can trace themselves back to the Sahel, which is where the R1B8 is located in the R1A. See, I do my research on DNA. They didn't think I did. So, Armorica, a city of R. Galatia, our Gallic, hellish L people, who is going to be called Ahasa, Lahasa, and known as Hausa, and going to go into Astalan. So here's more proof. Now let's go and get Arabia. I want to focus on Arabia because this script is also going to borrow from a very important script. Let's go and get Arabia. The reason why I show Aramarca, because this is the pre-Greek societies. These are the pre-Greek people. Let's say Arab tribes. Let's just say Arab tribes. So this is very critical to know that, because they like to say the Arabs are Bedouin. I mean, they don't mention the other people. But anyway, Arab would be Arab, and that would be the city of the fathers. Simply city of the fathers, city of Abba. So the first fathers would be who? The trader merchant men who gather in these cities. This is exactly what Arab is. And there's more R. There's more R. There's also a Arakana. Let's look up Arakana. Arakana. I think it's Arakana, Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. It may be Arakana, Turkey, or is it Ankara? No, that's not it. Let's go and look. Okay, Arcana, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, let's say Arkansas. Arkansas. Let's get rid of that. See if there's an Arkansas. I know there's some more R's. I just can't think of them. And this was a critical Confederate state. But like I say, there's many of these are of Moabs. Even Arizona is a likely one. And there's a gang of natives with the AR, indigenous people with the AR. But this is an example of Moab and Missouri kingdom. Moab and the kingdom of Egypt. Now, let me break that down before I move on. Let's go right here and get the proof of Canaan, the script that the Hebrew borrowed from. Yeah, Ankara is Turkey, but that wasn't a good example because I'm looking for the R of Moab, which means city. So we're dealing with Ptolemaic period. Now, sacred geography, biblical script, 1600s, right? Canaan, or the land of promise, the travels of St. Paul. So what they were doing with proving that Canaan was America. So that automatically debunks Dan Brown because the prerequisite for their Hebrew language is Canaan script, which is Phoenician script. And we know Moab dialect and script is where they actually learn how to decipher their Hebrew script. And I would say borrow because they never had a script to borrow. They never had a script because why would they need why would they need Moab? And we're going to go over that next. So this scriptural maps breaks down how Canaan is America. Canaan, the land of promise. They go right in, they don't hesitate. And this is in 1600s. Broke down on the lands of Solomon and the descendants of the people that dwell amongst the earth, of Noah and the deluge and Canaan and Arabia and all of Africa and America. Shem spread itself through America. So they're tracing these people, and this is over 400 years ago. So I just wanted to use that as a proof, and I can show more proof how Canaan is being persecuted because of how Slav translated scripture and writings of Japhet, Lafayette, Canaan, Shem, these noble families who became Tartars and Turks and Moors and Muscovians, right? Chaldeans, Babylonians, all these people were not Slavs or blue-eyed Slavic people. So Solomon ships, precious stones, Benedict Arias Montanus, go and look him up and how he portrayed America. Paraim, Peru, Hebrew Yucatan, which is like saying Lusitano. Yucatan is not saying Akhenaton. It is Lusitano, which is a Phoenician word for like living in Lisbon, where Elizabeth get her name from. This is Lusitano in the island Haiti, otherwise called Spaniola. Lakatan. Sounds like Lakatan. No, Lusitano. Lucatan. That's the same word of Lusitano in Portugal, and that's exactly why they connect Portugal to early America, y'all, because Lusitania. Now look at that. This is two Perus of the gold of Solomon in his mining expeditions in America, according to Bible geography in Asia and America. So Shem held to be the father. And they can document this. They know who these people are. Right? And here is Marmarica. Enaim Misri, Mitzrayim, in the Marriott of Egypt, the Commonwealth of the Marriott of Egypt, Naphtahim and Marin-Merikam, which we found Marin-Merikam in Brazil, and the Moors of the border of Egypt, whose chief city is Nabata, or Napta, Petrusim, or ferocious. So we had a town called Ferocious, Gaetulians, and that's how I connected the Celtics to the Moors, because the Gaetulians is connected to the Celtics, right? So let's get up out of here. I just wanted to do that for Michael Brown and Guerilla Hebrew. And they did a good job. They both did a good job. But there are some discrepancies with Yahweh. There are some discrepancies with the stealing of Moab culture, Shemash, God of ultraviolet light, triple dark light. The Korah, Koresh, Meccan Jews, who are no doubt Jews, they left that out. The Meccans. They left out a lot of the Jewish Christian wars. that had, the Moors had to mediate with the Christians and the Jews and their arguments and how they're mixed up together, and how the Moab and the Moabites and the Israelites had a war. Now let's look up Balak and Balaam. Balak and Balaam, and I find that odd that the doctor left that out. They didn't mention Balak and Balaam and the king of Moab, right? A people that has come out of Egypt. So they are here to curse Israel. King of Moab, King Balak, that's Egypt. I just read that. Moab and Missouri gave him money to curse Israel. So that is the new light bright people. They left all that out because Balaam is a prophet and Balak is a prophet, and we're dealing with American Asiatic people. We're dealing with American Asian connection, which could very well be Malaysian, Myanmar people, as well as Central American Mexican people who had the sun culture and the altars. Keep in mind, they just found some new altars in South America, and Balaam was a seer from Aram, which is another one of them are of Moabs. Right? See that? But I ain't gonna go into that. Son of Beor. Okay, let's go. Let's get back. Finish up this video. Okay, this the wrong one. This got to be it right here.
What? There would have been an excess of them coming from one place into another place.
Okay, but didn't explain how they got separated and reunited. Okay, so
Yes,
according to Genesis 17, God says that if you don't circumcise your son on the 8th day, you will be cut off from the people. So you're no longer an Israelite. So many of the people, almost everybody in the chart has no tradition of circumcising their sons on the 8th day through the centuries. So then they're all cut off. They can't be Israel.
I disagree.
Well, the floor is yours. Explain.
I disagree. That's how about when we take a look in the Bible when the kingdoms.
I need somebody on the.
Never happened in Israelite history. So, how about when we take.
That's known about historically. So then you don't have to worry about, people didn't just pop up in Poland. There's continuous Jewish culture, or whatever you want to say, Hebraic culture throughout the.
So we've suffered these things. Now, you and I would agree that the curses don't have to apply to every single person at every single time. You quoted Hosea 1, for example, about all the blessing that's being experienced. You've elsewhere referred to say, Judah, everyone will praise Judah, so look at how everyone looks to African Americans, etc. But by and large, if you want to look at the people who have suffered over the centuries around the world, watch Fiddler on the Roof. That's been life for Ashkenazi Jews for centuries, persecuted, hated, impoverished. So yes, there are good things that happen in our midst, just like good things in African American Hispanicness. But yeah, we've suffered terribly and continue to.
Okay, so I don't know if you understand my question, Dr. Brown. I said you affirm Jews are under the curses. Can you demonstrate the curses of Deuteronomy 28 that are presently affecting the Ashkenazi Jews? That does not mean bad things happening to them. I need to know the verse that corresponds to what you're describing in Deuteronomy 28.
Sure. Let me pull up the text and we'll start going through verse after verse. And by the way, again, you said that some of these happened historically. Absolutely agree. Much of it has happened historically. For example, being sold in slavery back to Egypt, that happened historically. I'm not the one who brought up the contemporary argument about that. That's been brought up to say, well, that it refers to African Americans sold into American slavery. So obviously you reject that. So let's just go back. It doesn't have to be to this moment. Let's go back to what happened in the Holocaust, recent history. Cursed shall you be in the city, cursed shall you be in the country. Wherever you were as a Jew, you were persecuted as a Jew. Cursed shall be your basket, your kneading bowl. Jews were put under starvation diets in the concentration camps and in the ghettos. Hundreds of ghettos where they were deprived. Kirship, the issue of the room, the produce.
All right, let's go back to the ghettos of Germany. Let's go back and revisit the ghettos of Germany and debunk that. Let's debunk that. Let's see if I can debunk that. Osiris, where is he at? So, like I say, the ghettos of Germany was ruled by brothers like this. See, this is who was ruling Germany until 1923. Till 1923. This is the ghettos of Germany. This is what they did. They had to work jobs for people like this, and they didn't like that. People like that own buildings like this of the Solomon brick mason, mothery mason, the original mason. Now let me go and prove it. Now remember I told y'all. Oh, let me see. Is it up here still? Cali Mos. No, it's over here. It gotta be. It gotta be. Where is that? That Moraberg. Weimar Republic. Now it's called the Weimar Republic, and that's when they brought in the British. The British was going for their little, industrial revolution. The British trying to be competitive. World War One is when they started kicking out the Weimar or the Moraberg. It's called the Siege of Mora. Let me go and show you. It's called the Siege of Mora. When they sieged Mora, that's when they started kicking out the Nazis, and they rewrote history as if they was the ones being gassed, when in actuality, we know the victors tell the truth. They tell their story. The siege of Moabburg between Allied besieged German troops, which would be our people, as we can see the flag of Saladin. So this is our people in Africa that they're trying to genocide before we could get out here and network with these people. Now look at the Spanish. Remember, he said there was no Spanish Hispanic in Germany, and then he said there was no African Americans in Nazi Germany / black people. This is 100% proof right here why they're racist with these people during the time of Jesse Owens. Let's just say black or African Nazi. Let's just say Nazi. See what pull up. Let's see what pull up. Black African Nazi. See what pull up. Okay. No, that's not it. Because they try to say that Nazi was persecuting black people and all that. We already, now let's say Nazi soldier. Let's say soldier. I just need to see soldier. I already done videos on this. But they're clearing the internet of this stuff. Okay. Here it is right here talking about dragged into Europe's war. They were not dragged into Europe war. They are the dang Nazis. These are the Nazis. They're talking about they dragged into the war. No, they are happy to be Nazis. These are all Nazis. And when Britain come in, they're going to start mollywopping these people when Britain come in and get involved. Wehrmacht. Look at that. Wehrmacht. Nazi regime effort. Look at that. Look at this. Afro-Arab soldier of the Free Arabian Legion. And they'll have you thinking that your people is just slaves all in Germany. They're lying. Let me go and show you. It said Afro-Arab, which is another word for more. Let me go and show you. Watch. Nazis in Islam and Micheal, Nazi in Islam. Michael Brown will never tell you about this because his people's job is to get Islam out. They are not, Jew just mean noble. That's all it means. Now let's get Nazi in Islam once again. Islam and Judentum. Nazis, Islam and Germany's war. Look at all these armed Nazis. Nazis, Nazi, And all they do is tell fake stories. Nazi Palestine. All they do is tell fake stories because they control Hollywood and they are paying these black people, these preachers in America to push that fake Christianity. They're pushing that fake Christianity to hide all of this and create the fake Jesse Owens story and Charlie Chapman is Hitler. All that's propaganda is fake. It's 100% legal to tell fake history. They can tell fake history. You never knew Nazi was Islam. You never knew that because they're not going to teach you that. And they were ruled by the Ottoman or the Turks. They were ruled by the Turks. They're just rewriting history. They're not going to tell you nothing about Mehmet Affinity, the real Jews. They're not going to teach you none of that. They control mainstream and these fake images. And we have nothing but these black preachers and these Hollywood dudes repeating this stuff like not a coincidence. And people like that who don't do nothing but teach white history. European history, that's all they teach. They don't ever teach the African version. They only teach English, which is propaganda. Those people are connected. The Islam-Nazi connection. This is not fake history. Dan Brown, Michael Brown he's gonna deny all of that. How are they anti-Semitic? It's basically Slavic people with black hair claiming to be some type of Jew people because they got dark hair or something. They're not blonde. When they're Slavic people, it is conversion like Guerilla Hebrew proved, and this propaganda and usurpation of the Moabite and the remnants of Canaan. This is exactly what I proved in this video, and I didn't even have to try hard. There is tons and tons of information to support Palestinian, Weimar Republic, Moab, Canaanite Yemeni, and these other axis of so-called evil, Korea, Japan, India. People living in these lands, the city people in India, all of those people supporting Germany at the same time, Marina Kingdom, Islam and Nazi Germany. It is a lie. They are not just some white people. Look at the dark-skinned brother right here. They're lying to you. This is exactly what they look like. And Christianity and the black sellouts of America all united to Mufti of Jerusalem. You know, they all united to keep you semi-illiterate and to keep you taxpaying. Now look at all of these leaders. They don't look like no white people to me. They don't look like just no white blonde-haired people to me because you believe Hollywood, and that is your penalty. Your penalty is listening to them. To this day, you listen to them, and that is your ultimate penalty. People like Michael Brown may have some descendants. I can't tell who Michael Brown got in his family. But I know the old religion was a racist religion, and they did not allow Slavs to have leadership. They did not have lepers and albinos, what we call white supremacists ruling nothing. There's never been a time when white supremacists ruled the land by themselves. That is a British Anglo-Saxon concept. As we can see what Nazi Germany actually looked like, what we call Moab, Siege of Mora, Cameroon. And that's it. I'm not even gonna play Michael Brown. And let's go in here to this thumbnail. I'm gonna go and do this thumbnail, and that's it. I'm not going back to Michael Brown because he kind of insulting my intelligence. Crescent moon. Let's just say crescent moon. Crescent moon. Flag. Let's just say flag. See what I pull up. See what pull up. Nothing pulls up that I need. Okay. Oh. Nothing. Let me see. Okay, crescent moon flag. Moors. Or flag. See what pops up. And you, okay, this is not what I'm looking for. Hold on. I got so much proof. This is just basic information. Okay, let's say I don't know how to let's say Muslim, the Star of David, crescent moon. Let's just take a look at this. Let's see if it's up. Nope, I might have to go and get it. Star of David. So let's see. Wow. Oh, they're making it difficult for me, boy. They're making it difficult. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. This what I'm looking for right here. Okay. The Turkish have the Star of David on their flag. Now, let's go and find that ancient flag. Remember of the look at that. You see the flag of the West that we find in the Confederacy. In the Confederacy. Now let's go back to that Caraman flag, the Turkish Sultanate. This is all stealing, even in America. This is the same people. So we know Jews and Moors was in America. The Confederate War is the cover up. Muslim, okay. Let me go and get that. And it's called, hold on. It's not going to take me long. Numbers. The First Crusade. Okay, the first. Medievalist.net. Okay, Islamophobia, the First Crusade. Okay, here it is right here. Now, here's an ancient picture right here where we see some obvious American looking people, not just no African y looking people. Whatever that means. I don't even know what African y really means. Islamophobia, the First Crusade, expansion of Christendom. So we know Christendom is British lepers. That's not Jew. Jew would be those brown Romanov people in Turkey and Russia. That's those brown Romani people we call gypsies. That would be the Jews. People with that significant brown blood that we're going to call Indian today. Now look at these brown men. Obviously, they call them black men today. But look at that star right there and that crescent flag, which is their flag, not no slaves. The true Slavs are the Slavic people. Look at that star right there. Wow, going into battle. I just wanted to show that during the Crusades, what the Moors would look like and the Turks versus the whitewash, which is fake history. It is fake history. Yeah, I got a lot of comments. That's it. I'm not going back to Mr. Brown. Shout out to Shadow Man for popping out. I appreciate you. Anuki, thanks for being in there with the comments and the spirituality. Thanks to Kiera. Okay, Nag did a video on genealogy paperwork to go back to Africa. Wow, they don't even have a written language. They don't even have a written language. They have Imbacity, whatever that's called. Yeah, if you teaching chattel slavery, how you got genealogy paperwork from where? You know, Nak is a liar. Sean P cool, man. He kind of cool, but Nak is he's a retarded liar. I'd have lost respect for him and YK the truth. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So this debate is gonna be a breeze. It's gonna be a breeze, but we need to keep on gathering information on Nak, so I can have that as an easy debate. Hopefully he don't show up like the rest. But I had to do this video for Michael Brown. I'm going to tag your name, Dr. Brown, and Guerilla Hebrew. Guerilla Hebrew made some good points, and he defended his people for having a Moabite Canaanite bloodline, but we are not Israelites in the sense of the whitening of the nations based off what Jehovah wanted to do in Psalm 83. So let's go back to Psalm 83. let's go and revisit Psalm 83 before we end this video to show you why that's important. Because you have to be out your mind if you think you an Israelite after Malik and Balaam. Yeah, we married to them like we marry into anybody, but we are the Moabites. The prophet didn't call us the Israelites. That's Jacob, one man, right? Hold on. Hold on, Moabite, Canaanite. Okay, no, I said I wanted to show the what I said I wanted to show. Chattel slavery. I said I wanted to show something. I guess that'd be it. Enemy, okay. Canaanites, Moabite. Yeah, we got paperwork that put us in America. Dang, hold on, man. Fuck it, I'll go in the video. I was just getting too hype. I said I was gonna show something. What the heck I just said I wanted to. One sec. Okay, I don't know what I wanted to show. It was Psalm 83. Before I get out of here, let's go and look at Psalm 83, and then we're gonna go back to Malik and Balaam. Now, I could do a part two to this because y'all left out the origin of Yahweh, right? Y'all left out the origin of Yahweh. Okay, this is definitely not the one I wanna read. Let's go back to Bible Gateway. Keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they hate. They have lifted up their head. That sounds like the Slavic people are lifting up their head and becoming Israel. They have taken crafty counsel against our people. That sounds like the Ottoman Empire and the Turks. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being the nation of Israel, be no more. So Israel is trying to rise, and they're cutting them off. Like, no, you can't be a nation. For they have consulted with one consent, and they are confederate. That sounds like the Confederate States and the Confederate Algonquian. The tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, which could be the Kentucky people, and Moab, which could be the Anasazi and the Haggadarians, which could be the Black Garans, which could be the Garifuna people. They can easily be the Garifuna people. Gebal is located in Morocco, and Ammon found in Georgia, Amalek found in South America and Mexico. Philistine, so-called Palestinians, Tyre, which would be Tripoli, Assur would be Assyria today. So these are all Muslim nations, and they all worship the sun. They all have in common, they all worship the sun god. They all worship the sun god, and they consulted against the so-called Jehovah people, who we call Anglo-Saxon today, in their mixed up population that's under them. Because they have dark-skinned people too, but they're slaves and under Britain and Anglo Church. They're in their country, you're a slave to them, but in our country, they're slaves to us. So Amalek and all of these people, Ammon, Moab, all have one thing in common. They have a sun god, like Shemosh is the sun god of the Moabites, and he's one of the he's one of the harshest of the sun gods. He represents light on top of light, the trifecta. You can go and learn about Shemosh and how the king of Moab hired Balaam to curse Israel. Let's go and look up the curse. Because he tried to curse them with 7 altars. Curse of Balaam. Balaam's intention was to curse the Israelite at the moment of wrath and thus cause God himself to destroy them. So he set up these 7 altars so the God, Son of God, can destroy them and set them on hills like mirrors to burn them. I read this whole story. I done videos on it to burn them, and the Israelites back then didn't burn. Unfortunately, the Israelites back then were not albinos. The Israelites back then were called Spanish. They were similar to Spanish, and they were a mixed people. And they how could I explain this? How could I explain this? Let me prove it. They are. It's called the Botus. The Botus manuscript. And in the manuscript, the Botus manuscript, they don't have no albinos. They have these Afro head people. As we can see in the Botus manuscripts, and we can see the 7 Elohim, the eyes of Allah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the eyes of Allah, the Elohim. Allah is the great God. As we can see, this is the Israelites back then with partial leprosy, white and brown skin. This is the people who is lifting up their heads because they are not all the way white. You see how easily I can prove this stuff? Now, let's go up in here. Look at them. They got white skin, people with woolly hair. These are the Israelites. And they stood up against Muhammad. They stood up against Black Muhammad, who they painted as the devil. Now look at these people, all got dark hair with froze. So the white people of today is still in these people identity, the Slavs of the day. Now these people they have a little melanin, but they were also persecuted under the Cushites and the black people law. But in this Boldest manuscript, they are with froze with dark hair, not like this man Michael Brown and the rest of these Slavic people. Now let's look at them. All of them got big woolly hair, except for some of them. And this is where those Jews of today is going to claim their bloodline. They're going to claim their bloodline and say, look, we come from here. Also in these documents, in these manuscripts, they show Muhammad as the devil, as a black devil. They portray Muhammad as a devil. Let's go and get that, and we're going to get out of here. And so we can see the sun cross. We can see these people with woolly hair, the first Israelites. Okay, let's go and get Muhammad. Let's say Bo is Muhammad, and I think that's like 10th century Muhammad. Boldest manuscript Muhammad. See if Muhammad pop up anywhere. I know he in here. See, look at these Islamic manuscripts. They not gonna show you what they was doing with them Slavic people, breeding them. Look at them with black hair. Okay, let's go and find Muhammad Mozarabs. I think this is it. Look at this is a good one right here. They're gonna Christianize the Mozarabs too. Look at the early Israelites during the apocalypse in 10th century. Look at them. A lot of these people are not. See, this is during this time when they're getting their freedom from the Caliphate of Cordoba, which is the black period, or the blacks or the Moors. Okay. Let's go and get this Muhammad. Leon Andalus. Where's that Muhammad at? Look at this brown figure. Here's another one. That's a brown dude right there showing you. The angels are brown with black hair, not these albino people that's hijacking the world. Look at this brown looking dude. Look at these big old froze or woolly hairs from these light-skinned ambiguous people, which was the real war. The real war was against light-skinned and dark-skinned people. It had nothing to do with Slavs. Okay, build this manuscript. Shows Muhammad as the devil. Okay, here it is right here. The apocalypse. Here's one. That's Muhammad as a black down there. But there's some more. They got some good ones. They got some good ones. The devil, you know, they got Muhammad as the straight devil. Here go. Now he's brown right here. Here we go right here. This Muhammad, take my word. This is how they displayed the people. And this is what Baphomet is going to come from as well. Look at these brown images. Now they got one of Muhammad where he really black. Where he really looking black. I'm going to find it. It's actually probably in the Wikipedia one. I want to show it before I end this video. It's that medieval manuscripts. Boldus. Jerome. Let's say Jeronis Boldus. Okay, here it is right here. I knew I was going to find it. Now, here it is right here, the Gerona Boldus. Now, this is how they portrayed. You see that, the two witnesses. That's easy right there. That's an easy. Look at that. See how that man lied talking about ain't no Hispanics or Negro Moors in Germany and all that in that area. This is the manuscript. Let's keep going. See if they show Allah. Where's Allah? The Islamic, look, the Islamic writer from the, see, they're showing you. Look, arrows and tools, spears. The Islamic writer. Look at Jehovah Witnesses. Jehovah Witnesses, pointy caps. This is what it looked like back then, and the Europeans can't justify their nonsense with this type of proof. Okay. Mirignama, the apocalypse of Muhammad. I told y'all right here, the devil you know in medieval. This is why they don't want to talk about the medieval period, because all of this evidence is here in some of these museums and cultures, but they don't want to show this stuff in the mainstream because it's gonna present too many questions. Look at the language. Look at the dark-skinned people burning. Look at those dark-skinned people. Let's see if Muhammad is in here anywhere. He's in here. Where's Muhammad at? And he's a big black dude too. Look, they burning them all. Where's Muhammad at? I'm gonna find them. I guarantee you, I'm gonna find them. Okay. False prophet. Let's go in here and see if he might be in here. I want to see that joint with Muhammad. I'm talking about they got him black as night. Okay, the devil you know. What is this? Medieval manuscripts. See, they get into the business in here. They let you know who the enemy was. And that, the European of today is carrying the tradition of hating on Moors. Detail of a miniature Adam and Eve in paradise. Look at that. That's Adam and Eve. They don't really look like no Europeans. Detail of the first temptation of Christ. Okay, this is not okay. Where's Muhammad at? This ain't it. This ain't the one I'm looking for. I won't stop till I get that Muhammad manuscript. Okay, let me rewrite it. Okay. How Hieronymus Oldest manuscript portray Satan. Okay. If I can just get one image. Okay, I know this is it. This is one of them. I remember seeing this. Now, this is really a good one, though, because that even proves even more these Europeans with this blonde hair and blue eyes is hijacking. Look at these people. These light-skinned people. But a lot of them, they still might hide the bloodline. The apocalypse of the evil spine. They might still hide that bloodline, these Europeans. That's why they claim Italian and they claim certain groups. They don't just claim white and Caucasian. They'll claim Albanian, Bulgarian when they want to claim their little Muslim blood. Okay, this it right here. Ain't you throwing a dragon into the abyss? You see this brown dragon? I did a video on it. I can do part 2, but I don't want to waste time trying to prove that. Okay, this is Yahweh right here. I don't want to waste time showing. I promise you I can prove to y'all that they portray Muhammad as a black devil. Let me look it up one more time. Let me look it up one more time. I've done videos on it. I actually have a video with, matter of fact, it's in here. It's in here. I have the thumbnail. I actually have the thumbnail. Let's get the thumbnail. I know I got it because I did a video on it. And I actually wanted to go over a lot of this with Michael Brown, a lot of this sunburn information, but I'm not going to do that in this video. A lot of the old world knowledge of the sun and melanoma and who the Saracens was and the people. You see, we can really go and prove that y'all ain't got nothing to do with Ra, y'all, none of that. Allah, all that's nonsense. Y'all folks is part of Revelation 16:9, and the chosen were allowed to begin to curse mankind with fire. That's exactly who y'all is. Because y'all are the only people who fit the injury in Matthew. They talk about the injury. Matter of fact, let's go get that. Let's talk about that. It's in here. I know it's in here. Let's go all the way down. It's in here. Right here. Let's go and read about it. Okay, this is not it. That's Yaqub Master. Master Yaqub. I don't know what the hell this is. Let me see. Master Yakub 7. Where is that quote at? Okay, here it is right here. Your wound, this is Jeremiah. Your wound is incurable. Your injury beyond healing. No one can help or bind your injury. No medicine can heal you. That is melanoma. That's the worst disease. Black is not worse than melanoma. Being black, dark skin is not worse than having this sunburn melanoma. So we understand your medicine cannot heal you. No one can heal your injury. Let's prove it. Your wound is incurable. Melanoma is not a cancer. It is the curse of the Son of God and fulfills the prophecy to burn in fire. That's how we know who's an Israelite. A Israelite, light skin and brown skin people mixed together versus Slavic albinos that are rewriting history of the sun culture, especially in India, especially in South America, especially in Mexico, especially in Egypt. The people who are burning from the sun is rewriting history. Exactly. Now let's go back. Let's go back. Okay, I don't see it. I think that's gonna be it with the with the Geronis Bodas. Cause like I said, I did a video on it. I do not see the Muhammad Gerona Bodas. I mean, what is this? Most Arabic art. Okay, let's look at this. It might be in here. Okay, Ambrosian. Now I'll go over this another day. Cause I'll just be siphoning through all of this stuff. Let's go through the Codex. Basil. Let me just go through the let me just go through here right quick. See, I'm a probably do a little. I'm gonna do a little community post on this because, like I say, I have the video. I can go in here and show y'all. I have it on my thumbnail. That's what I'm gonna do. I got it on my thumbnail. Let's go in here and prove it. Or I might have it in here. I might have it in here. You never know. Let's just look. That Geronis Bodas Muhammad did I use? No, I would have seen it by now. It ain't in here. But I did a video on it. Let's go and prove it. Okay, let's go prove it. Okay. Geronis Bodas manuscript. I know I did a video on it. And it's gonna pull right up, watch. And it was alive. Come on. Oh, that's giving me trouble. I guess that's it. Okay, let's go live. Oh, this is the wrong channel. Come on, man. Please. Wasting my damn time. I wonder why this train moving so slow all of a sudden. Okay. I gotta prove this Geronis Bodas manuscript of Black Muhammad because I did a video on it. And I'm just doing this for Dan Brown and his denial. But he wasn't denying it because Dan Brown actually admitted his people was slaves, which is a good thing. I think that Geronis Bodas was Definitely. Let's see. Geronis. Look, Geronis Boldest manuscript. Look, I told you. Look at Muhammad. Look at Muhammad. That is the thumbnail right there with Muhammad getting thrown. Look, let's go and look it up. That's the whole thumbnail. Let's see if we can save that. Let's save it. Ooh, thank you. Let's pull it up. I told you I was gonna find it. Now look how they portray Muhammad as a little Kodak Black. A Kodak Black in hell. That's Muhammad. This is how they painted Muhammad when they was trying to get freedom from Saracens and dark-skinned people. So this is how they paint Muhammad in the could I look for it? I can't find it in here. Nope. Can I find it? File info. Okay, I can't find it here. I'll do it somewhere else. But yeah, this is the Geronis Boldest manuscript, and this is how they make Muhammad look. You feel me? Muhammad, come on. They're letting you know what it is. But the thing about it is, what I'm proving about the Muhammad thing, this was light-skinned people, mulatto people fighting these people. And this is with Spanish and Moors is going to be fighting, light-skinned and dark-skinned. Michael Brown and Slavic people like them is going to pick up after the Spanish Moro and the Spanish Moro Wars, the Spanish conquest, the Inquisition. They're going to capitalize off of that. But the initial wars for the Israelites was Balik and Balaam. And Balaam couldn't curse the light-skinned people, were froze. The Ethiopians, they couldn't curse them. They couldn't curse the light-skinned people. And that's how Moab and Israelites married into each other and became one because they stopped fighting. They realized who the real enemy was, and that's Hispanola and Negroes today. That's my breakdown on that, because they're trying to take it into Europe when a lot of this fighting was happening in America as well. With this Mormon description and the Spanish Inquisition and Catholic monarch Inquisition. That's how that's explained. But anyway, let's get out of here. I appreciate y'all. I will be back with a new video. It was just 3 hours. It wasn't even that long. I'm gonna do the recap. I'm gonna do the preview of the Dane Calloway. The Sean P book on Dane Calloway to see if he caught Dane Calloway in anything. And I think I'm gonna do a preview of my information on the debate, if not even show up. But I'm gonna do a whole breakdown of the information I'm gonna use. And I think I want to do another video. I can't remember right now because it's late. But expect a couple more videos from me. And the website, like I say, I'm working on that, and my products coming real soon. Hopefully I have that before November, December. And stay blessed. Stay full of light. Keep your melanin fresh. Stay clean. Eat the veggies. Drink water. Exercise. Stop eating fungus. Stop eating moldy food. Stop eating sugary, starchy food. Stop it. Fourth angel in the building, PNF, Supreme Leader Eli, our Lord and Savior. Once again, coming with the information. And I'll holler at y'all people. Shout out to everybody who popped out.
Heaven on earth. Where your family? You want to get in tune with your dreams? I'm Lord and John. You want to get in tune with this universe? Let divine manifest. I'll put you in tune. Lord and John off that third eye. It be so beautiful out here. You know what I'm saying? Lord and John. Everything peaceful. You know what I'm saying? Lord and John, that divine creed. Man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We be in rotation. Damn, Piccolo, you did that? Everything beautiful. My life would be lit, I be deep in this lit. It's a heavenly life, it's some tea in the sense. Paradise living, we manifest heaven, so future and direct. This is the life that I live. Baby, if you wanna roll with a king, it's a beautiful thing when I summon your dreams. Deep on the scene like we shooting the scene. Baby, you see this the American dream. Alhamdulillah, Allah Akbar. I pray to Allah, and I'm all about cream. Fuck nigga try me, a nigga go 90. See, bitch, I'm almighty, get whooped by a lion. Bitch,
bitch, I will fry you. Give a fuck about your title. I know you a bitch, cause I'm really a psychic. Right over left in the lane, yeah, I'm Maki. I draw the science, my third eye so cocky. On the side of my fence, yeah, I'm keeping it clean. Yeah, when I step on the scene, you know what it is. Yeah, when you see them colors, we look like machines. Yeah, see, I'm in the land, indigenous king, a real chief. I say low key, my third eye see. Yeah, I